as soon as Joey tells me that we are good. Oh, let's pass this around.
What about Thursday? I'm not meeting until Tuesday with them next week, or are you just out? You're out. Sorry.
I'm really
How
We're
about,
ready to go.
I'm gonna call you at 10:45.
Hey, Carly, will you go look out the hallway and just see if Joel's on his way? Otherwise, welcome everyone. Take this opportunity while we're waiting for Joel and Carly to remind everyone to silence your cell phones. We'll go ahead and get started. It is 7:01, November 12, 2019. Welcome to our regular City Council meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get started, I would like to please ask everyone to close your eyes and take a moment of silence for the family, the Seniceros family, who lost their daughter. Thank you. So we are on section 3, approval of the minutes. We do have 5-minute moments. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes that are up. Do I need to list out all of them? Or do I just? I make a motion to approve all the minutes that were presented in our packet.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tani. Any discussion?
I know I and maybe some other folks had changes that we made online, so I was talking to Joey, so it feels like those got made.
Joey, I'm not sure if amplification for Ronnie is up. Sorry about that.
Do you want me to repeat?
You guys hear that?
Yes, please. For the recording.
For the recording.
Okay.
For the recording.
Do we have sound now? Okay. I was just saying that I, and I think some of the rest of us, made comments on the shared copies of the minutes for just corrections, and I know Joey said she made those, so I was just passing that on.
Thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. On to reports. Other than Halloween, which was so much fun. Let's see, Friday on the 25th, I was very grateful to be invited to and to attend the Western Caucus Foundation events. Senator Mike Lee, our senator, worked with the Western Caucus Foundation to bring our delegation in our state down, and I had the opportunity to hike in Arches with the senator, as well as Congressman Rob Bishop and John Curtis. It was very interesting to talk public lands in Arches National Park. So after that, I think most of us were at the round table where the discussion of public lands continued. It was nice to see the community come out to hear what was to be said. And I was also grateful to those that were respectful in their protest. And then I had dinner with all of them at the Rustic Cowboy Policy Dinner. And the speaker at that event was the BLM director, William Perry Pendley. Is his last name. So it was interesting to hear his perspective about public lands as well. And I think my takeaway from that day's events is that we are quite divided in our community and in our state on how we see the management of our federal lands. But it was really nice to participate in that discussion throughout the day, to be able to offer the perspective that I think that we have in Moab to give sort of a balanced perspective approach to the conversation that some of us have in Moab. Also, I wanted to let you all know that I met with Carrie, Desert West Office Supplies. And that conversation led me to wanting to open up a larger conversation with the business owners whose back door opens to the dirt lot that we all park at when we go eat at Red Rock Bakery. And the idea of getting organized in that back lot, organizing that parking area as part of the dispersed parking plan, and potentially a place to use UDOT funding. It was on the list of areas, and it was already it had a drafted schematic plan. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm talking with the business owners. And I started with Mike Stoy because he owns the parcel where the ingress and egress occurs, to have a conversation with him. So I just want to let you all know that. I had lunch with the middle school student of the months, Emily Rutherford and Abby Jones. Congratulations to them. I also met with Adam Whitaker from the Red Cross. He's very interested in getting somebody in our southeastern Utah area on his board of directors. And so I don't think I have the time available to do it, but if anyone on this council would like to serve as a board member for the Red Cross of Utah, of southeastern Utah, I would be grateful, and he is certainly looking for that representation. I attended a water quality board meeting, and it was kind of a big deal because for the first time they came down to Moab to hold their meeting. And at that meeting, we toured the watershed, and we talked about different projects. We went to Dr. Roz McCann's house and looked at her gray water system, and then later in that day during our meeting, we actually moved forward with the recommendation to change the rule to allow gray water systems in the state of Utah and to make them much more functional, much easier. And a big shout out to Orion Rogers, our area health department director, because he was the one that was instrumental in getting all of that together. He's incredible. And I'll have some things to say about gray water in our agenda items later tonight. I also attended the CIB meeting that was held on the 7th, and I gave them the welcome, which the Mayor Dave before me did every time that they met in Moab in November. And that was really interesting to see them discuss how they're spending those CIB funds. They're always open for attending those meetings, but you can't speak unless you're on the agenda. Also yesterday was the Veterans Day celebration. It was beautiful, and I'm very grateful to the people that organized it and all the kids that came from the school to celebrate. And then I wanted to say thank you to staff for attending the active shooter trainings, the mandatory active shooter trainings, because workplace safety is super important. And I attended. I saw Ronnie was here this morning with me as well. And I think that that is, one of our responsibilities is not just safety within our community, but safety within the culture of our Moab City community. So I just want to say thanks to staff for doing that, and thanks, Joel, for supporting Carmela and the chief in organizing that. And that's all for me.
Okay. October 25th, also went to the roundtable with Senators Mike Lee and Lisa Murkowski. Mayor already covered that. Thank you. October 25th, I also went to open house at Western Rivers for their new guide house, and encourage anyone who's interested in employee housing to talk to them and check that out. They did a really nice job. October 26th, I went to the event that the Moab Area Community Land Trust had out on their land, where you could go learn more about the plans for the housing there and also harvest native plants and soil crust. October 27th was the Day of the Dead at the Multicultural Center. Great fun and a nice time to celebrate loved ones. October 28th, I attended the Travel Council Town Hall Do It Like a Local campaign and saw the films that they worked on. Nice job. October 29th, we had our quarterly UMTRA meeting, and I was just going to say, we, like so many people waiting on the federal budget, are waiting for confirmation about whether we indeed got our $45 million for next year. The federal budget is behind schedule. There's currently a continuing resolution through November 21st, and I guess we'll find out if that gets extended. Or if we actually get a budget. October 31st, I attended Trunk or Treat. So much fun, and added kudos to whoever was responsible for that snail costume and the Van Gogh pear and the little fish in the bag. Very cute. And the police department did a real fun job with their display. November 2nd, I tend to every year retake the ULCT Land Use Academy of Utah Land Use 101 training, just because I find repetition good, but I have to say, for anybody who didn't repeat this time, they had some new instructors, so there was some new fun stuff, and thanks to all the staff who attended and our friends from Bluff who came up. And I will follow up with Nora, because it seemed like there were some questions about some language that we don't want to have in our code. I'm not sure if we've got it in there or not. November 4th, League of Women Voters and the Grand County High School debate team debated our Utah State proposed tax restructuring and reform, and just fabulous job as ever on behalf of our high school students. They're very impressive, and thank you to Coach Strecker. And I also wanted to thank Rachel Stenta, because she helped the team prepare and came to the event to answer questions about tax restructuring. November 6th, I watched the county council meeting online. Kudos to you county council members. That was a long meeting, but informative. And part of that was their budget workshop, which I thought would be good just to listen to as a city council member. November 6th, I got an EMS update email, which I just sent to the rest of the council tonight. I thought you guys might enjoy just reading about some of the updates there in terms of staff and the building and some of the calls they've been dealing with. Probably the main update to mention is they are moving ahead with a new building on the top of 100 North where they are now. It will involve demolishing the existing building, so just know that EMS, Sandflats, Trail Mix, and the American Legion will be moving out of the building. They think somewhere between mid-February and mid-March. And I know American Legion at least will be back in that new building with EMS. I think the other entities are looking for other space. So if you can help them out in their trials with that, as they talk to the county about that, that would be great. Let's see. November 7th, we had a Canyonlands Healthcare Special Service District Board meeting, and we've been having budget meetings. It's budget time for us as well as EMS. We're working to figure out the budget to deal with the loss of mineral lease funds. And I was just going to mention to those of you that this means something to, because it's very complicated and I won't spend a lot of time, it is likely that that will impact the DISH funds that the district has been providing to the hospital. Just in a nutshell for people who don't know, DISH funding is made available by the government to hospitals that provide care to a lot of folks who are either uninsured or on Medicaid, but the community does have to make a contribution, and that's been coming historically through the healthcare district. It can't come from the city or county government. It can't come from a district or a nonprofit in the community. So we might be needing to look for another place in the community for that to come to the hospital. November 8th, the Film Commission did an utterly fabulous job with their Moab showdown of short films. Thank you again. Watch, and oh my gosh, our talented. And I just wanted to thank staff for making the active shooter training available today, because I don't want to make light of the issue, but I have to say, if you're going to add humor to a training like that, a very good job was done, but I also just appreciated how very practical it was. And it's the kind of thing you get nervous about going to, but you feel a lot better about going to after you've done it. So I think that was it, other than maybe Joel, when you get to your stuff, I was just going to see if there was any update on Trail Mix, only because I think last time you said you guys were having a staff meeting, there might be some discussion about it then. Thanks.
Thanks, Ronnie.
So I just wanted to thank Public Works publicly once again for fixing a curb for a blind resident, which was a great thing, and he appreciates it as much as I do. Thank you again. I did encounter at a folk festival here some folks doing census stuff, and I had written a letter to Lisa, hoping she could put it into some of the city's media, you know, to stuff about census, because they're actively looking for people next spring $16 an hour plus mileage. You know, it's a job, and they need help. But I have not heard from Lisa. Anybody know where she's at? Oh, there you are. Did you get that letter or what?
I did, and I'm sure Karen will fill you in, but I'm already working with her on this.
Okay.
I'm actually waiting to get some information from the woman.
Okay. That's great. I just hadn't heard, so thank you. Oh, and I wanted to ask Joel and Chuck, I don't see Chuck in the audience again. I keep getting leaned on by the church community about water issues, a long-standing subject and so forth, and so it would be nice to have some sort of time frame to give him and myself an idea of when something might be happening. You know, there was a new study that was involved and some money and so forth, but some update on that would be great. Appreciate it. I went to a Grand County budget meeting. Rachel was there, and it made me appreciate Rachel. I want you guys to know that, just listening to those guys all talk. They were, let's just say that I think we have it together better than they do. Okay, don't mind my saying so.
You might be biased.
No, I've been on county, well, I'm on County Planning Commission for 8 years, all right, so I have some affinity for those guys too. But yeah. And I participated along with Carly in the Warming House Center. Carly, maybe you know, I don't know how this all got started, but somebody apparently, in case you guys haven't heard, Sarah and a group of people dealing with homeless folks here in the community have gotten the idea, a very sensible thing to, on cold winter nights, sufficiently cold, to put them up in the Center Street Zim during the evening hours. And it's a simple idea. Nobody wants people dying on our watch out here. And yet, as always with these kinds of things, there's a host of complications, including licensing, among other things. So for people that are looking into that. But I hope we can make that happen because, as again, Carly, I don't know if maybe you want to say more about it. Carly was a great hand in having there and helping get those folks organized.
Yeah, just some background. It got started, we were just approached by some members in the community wondering they saw a need and were wondering if we were willing to pitch in, and definitely Joel was really eager to say, yeah, we'd be willing to examine allowing folks to spend the night maybe in the gym. And we've still got some details to work out, like temperature, what temperature is appropriate to open the gym, how many people, how we staff it. We probably need to license it. We'll need materials. I think Sarah's group's gonna need some volunteers. So we're still hashing through it.
It was one of those things that kind of just came together. It's not done yet. It's far from it. Like Carly just said, we have permitting we have to do through the state, and we have insurance issues we have to work through the trust. But it was something that myself and the rec department in the gym had talked about this summer, about trying to do, before we knew anyone else in the community was even approaching it. So we'd kind of ran through it with the three of us and talked about what we felt like it would take to actually pull that off. And we'd kind of come to the conclusion that we didn't think we could do it without a significant partner in the community because of the hours of overnight staffing. And so we'd kind of put it to the side and said, well, let's focus on it later. Let's try and do this. But we're kind of, and so we didn't know the members of the community were out looking to do it. So when they approached us, it was kind of like, yeah, actually, this is kind of something we've been working on anyways. So it's,
thank you very much.
hopefully we can come together. We're trying to get it done ASAP to try and do it this winter, but we have to follow the rules and we have to make sure our insurance and everything is in place in order for our liability to be covered as we go forward. So we're trying to work it out. We'll see how it shakes out.
That's a great thing. Thank you. I also went to the Film Commission competition. I don't know how many you guys went, but I hope this is an annual thing. It was a riot. I can't tell you how much fun it was. So I also went to, I go to regular county water board meetings. Got dragged in a little bit more than necessary. They're thinking about, as we so often face, you guys wonder where $33 million in infrastructure goes to that we're going to need over the next 5 years or 10 years, whatever it is. They're facing the same sort of issues with instrumenting their water tanks and pumps and wells and all that 9 yards. So for my technical expertise, because I'm an ex-engineer, anyway, it was interesting getting into all that. So I'm a little bit deeper into county water now than I was. And finally, I went to a Arroyo Crossing. That's the big affordable community trust development going on out south of town, and Audrey Graham has been a big part of that since day one. And it was interesting to go because they talked about gray water systems and different species and how rain catchment systems work, and they got all kinds of interesting ideas. I had no idea. I'm glad I went to that one.
Thank you, Mike.
I went to the Public Lands Roundtable, and I also went to the open house at Western Rivers at the Public Lands Roundtable. One of our planning commissioners and I spoke with Senator Murkowski afterwards, and we talked about our moratorium and our plans, and she called us radical, and I was quite proud of that. She may not have meant it as a compliment, but that's how I took it. And that's all.
Thanks, Tawny.
Let's see. So I also attended the U.S. Senate Subcommittee on Public Lands, Forest and Mining, which was a fine example of what government entities tend to do, and it was a lot of talk. Didn't seem, anyway. So I also participated in a key leaders meeting with the school district. The purpose of the key leader board is to guide the group to select one complex community issue to address in Grand County. Grand County council members are involved, the city, the chief of police, sheriff, Moab Regional Hospital, director of workforce services, USU, and the 7th Judicial Court, and the school district. The issue that has been finally addressed as the one the group can get behind, we've been meeting for over a year, is a two-prong approach to intergenerational poverty, which will include the pairing of higher education, CTE, and workforce programs with childcare and early childhood education. I will be presenting something to Joel and the mayor coming soon to get consensus from the council if we, as the city, would stand behind potentially offering funding or space or just potential being a rally cry for CIB funding in the future. So that you guys will hear more information about that.
Did you say space? Or childcare? So is it part of what
So
Libby's
that was a
group
big
is?
question because I know we were met by the Moab Community Cares.
Yes.
Or Moab Child Care Community.
Community childcare.
Is that what it is?
Cares.
And, right, and so they, the school district is fully on board with what the Moab MCC is trying to accomplish. They have a bigger goal, which is to reach 200 children and families. So a concern of mine was that this is just another example of somebody, another group trying to move forward with childcare, and we need to just start somewhere. And so they are definitely going to incorporate what MCC is trying to do. They're just looking at their program as a little bigger. So if we're supporting MCC, that's totally in line with what the Key Leader Board is trying to accomplish.
Okay.
So it's perfect.
Okay.
As I know Joel has had discussions with that group before. And then again, I'm just gonna touch base with if anyone is interested in sharing the message with congregations or group members about census information, that it's important and confidential and over 200 years old. Please join us on December 9th here in the council chambers at 11 a.m. All individuals are welcome to join the census complete count. Right now, we're just in the planning mode, and things are gonna hit the ground running after the new year to get the census information out. Carrie Valdez from the Grand County Public Library has submitted a $20,000 grant request to aid in our efforts to get locals counted for the Census 2020. So if people are gonna need flyers or buttons or other sources of information to give out to groups, we please come and talk to us because we have the information, maybe if we get the grant funding. I also attended the showdown which was a fantastic mix of residents that love film, from old to young, multi-generational locals to newbies. It was really an awesome show for the first year. And then earlier I attended the Design Advisory Committee group with Kaylin for the downtown parking structure. And we talked about project size, goals, and materials. There will be an open house on December 3rd. Everyone is welcome, and it's going to be here at the council chambers at 5 to 7, which I'm sure Lisa will be giving information out to the public. And that's it.
Thanks, Karen.
I attended the Travel Council Sustainability Subcommittee discussing certification frameworks for encouraging and documenting sustainability in that sector. I attended a Moab Dark Skies meeting. We reviewed a next draft of a public-focused plain English brochure to communicate what are the intention and substance of our new codes. I met with some University of Utah students studying tourism-related fields just to talk about the challenges and opportunities that creates here, and also the sustainability opportunities. And I went to a housing task force meeting, and we talked about usual updates, but then had sort of a bigger discussion about sort of where we were at and possible next steps. So that was good. I met with Mary McGann, Zachariah, and a couple of Utah Clean Energy staff about HB 411 next steps generally, and also the possibility of the county joining us in our efforts for really assertive response to climate change. I went to a travel council meeting today, which was very lightly attended and short, and the DAC, Design Advisory Committee, which Karen mentioned. And I encourage people to come to the open house just because it seems like a really great team that's working on it, and they have a lot of good ideas about how to make it really an asset to the community, both aesthetically and functionally.
What was the open house date again?
December 3rd.
That's it.
Thanks for serving on the DAC, you two. Thanks, Kaylin. We are now at section 5 of our agenda, administrative reports.
Mayor, can we talk about future meeting dates real quick?
Oh, we sure can. And whoops, I was supposed to do that, and I apologize. Sorry, thanks for the reminder. Council, we're looking at adding some dates to complete our work for 2019. We're looking at November 19, from noon to 1:30, doing a budget workshop with Rachel, where she will present the matrix and go over numbers and give us the opportunity to talk in light of the county being in their budget, doing their budget process right now, and so that we can respond to some of the items that they're discussing. Can anyone not make November 19th at noon?
I can't.
Okay, the two of you can't. Can you participate remotely?
No.
Okay.
I can't make it either.
Oh, you can't make it either.
Yeah, is this the same meeting, the same
Okay.
date that was posted on our little phones not long ago? I mean, it was.
There was some confusion about how it was getting emailed. So if we can't make the November 19th, then what we need to do is figure out a date where we can all do budget, and preferably before Thanksgiving.
Can we do a lunch meeting pre-council on that Tuesday, on the 12th?
That's
Oh my
today.
gosh, what am I?
Yeah,
sorry.
I know.
Oh,
I know.
that would be so
I
nice.
know.
Gosh.
Let's do that earlier today.
Sorry.
Earlier today
Okay, great.
because of the shooter training and,
12th already?
yeah.
So-
It is. Wow, that was hilarious.
So I'm under the impression that we're going to have a meeting about the overnight accommodations.
Oh, we're getting there.
Right,
Yeah,
but
we
I
got a
wonder
list.
if we could just combine them and have a meeting.
So we were discussing that November 21st.
Oh,
That would be Thursday. So are you both gone that full week?
I'm gone that full week.
Okay, the following week is Thanksgiving, and also a very difficult week to have meetings.
not for me.
Okay.
But I realize it is for some people, but
Yeah, and the school's out for that full week, so, and it's a holiday on Thursday and Friday. So, okay.
not Monday or Tuesday.
Right, but school is out for that full week. Okay. So if both of you are gone literally all next week, would it be possible to try to do a budget meeting on Friday? This week?
Are you going to try to go to the UDOT meeting?
Right.
If you're trying to do it before the 23rd, just don't worry about me. I'm just not available. Sorry.
You're not available
No.
from now on?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I can make the 21st. I didn't bring my calendar with me. I think we're getting back home the 20th, I think.
The 21st of Thursday,
Yeah.
you could make?
I can't make any in the day. Like Friday or in the evenings are, I just don't have that flexibility right now.
Okay. Well, alternatively, we can look at the first week of December. So our first meeting in December is actually December 10th. So the week before, the week of December 2nd. We could try to schedule a budget and an overnight accommodation meeting that week. It's pushing it, but possible. So if we're looking at doing it in the evenings,
Okay in the evenings
you're okay?
or on Friday.
Or on Friday, anytime?
Yeah.
Friday the 6th. What would your preference be?
Friday would be best for me.
What about Friday the 22nd, Mayor? Fridays are available?
No,
Okay.
Kaylin said,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't have a preference. I'm gonna be around. Anything except the first part of next week, I'm okay with.
So we could do Friday the 6th anytime, or we could do evenings, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
I
What do you
can't do
think?
evenings.
You
yeah.
can't do evenings.
Monday through Thursday, yeah.
Okay, well then what if we did a long-ish meeting on Friday? And we did both budget and overnight accommodations,
Friday the 5th.
6th.
I'm okay with that, but don't do it just for me.
So we could do a 3-hour? What is your preference for those 3 hours?
Doesn't matter.
9 to noon?
Yeah, let's get it done.
Should we check and make sure that both Nora and Rachel are available in that block? Nora? And Rachel's not here, but at least we could schedule the overnight accommodations for Friday the 6th.
What time are you trying to leave Friday?
Friday,
This Friday?
It starts at 9.
Oh, it does. It's early in the morning.
8, yeah. But I'll be back. We'll be back. The commission meeting's not, I have to head back up at 3. But I don't think Kaylin can do Friday. He can't do Friday.
But you can't do December, can you?
No, I can do
Oh,
December.
He can do the 6th. I think we're all good for the 6th. We just don't know about Rachel. And then if we did a 3-hour meeting, we could do an hour-and-a-half budget, hour-and-a-half overnight accommodations, and that seems like what we have to do. So, all right, let's get it scheduled. Joel, will you talk to Summer to
I will.
make all that happen? And just let us know if Rachel can't do it on that day. All right. Oh, and then the one other thing is then we do have our regular scheduled meeting on December 10th, and we just wanted to have us all on notice that if we don't have overnight accommodations decided on and in place at our December 10th meeting, then we're going to need to have a special meeting that week, the week of the 16th. So is anybody not here the week of December 16th?
Me.
Okay.
I could call in, but I don't know if you want that.
I think I'm okay.
Okay. And that would just be an emergency or just a special We won't call it an emergency, we'll call it a special, just to be able to get our ducks in order by the end of this year, which was our goal for overnight accommodations. Okay, does that, yes? Something looks,
Yes, so I'm just wondering if we're talking, if a big part of the agenda on the 6th is overnight accommodations, but it has to get turned around to be voted on the 10th, it will have already been through planning commission. I'm just wondering, like, in order for this body to have substantive input, if that discussion should happen
November 21st?
or soon and without me.
And that was the whole point of why we're trying to do it November 21st.
Yeah,
uh,
I mean, just in terms of this body functioning, like, and as well as possible.
so, if
make
we did it on the 21st, we would need to do it in the evening, but that's when the planning commission is meeting. So the evening of the 21st doesn't work, but the evening, Wednesday evening, the 20th.
I mean, is my logic,
No.
But Karen's also not here that week.
I'll be here.
You will be here?
I'll make it.
Well, you could, I mean, call in. I could also laptop you in. Just have your head at a microphone. Friday the 22nd?
Rachel won't be
Friday's
here on the
easier.
22nd.
Okay.
Rachel won't be here the 22nd.
We don't care about Rachel as much as we do Nora. Because for the 20, we care about everyone, but for the attendance, we care less about Rachel's attendance. We're just talking overnight accommodation meeting, right?
That would add an additional meeting. Right now, we have it, so we're gonna be on the 21st, or the 19th was the initial idea. And they were both gonna be on the 19th. So if,
The original idea was 19th was budget and 21st was overnight accommodation. So we're moving budget
so the budget's the 6th,
to the 6th.
okay?
But then Kalen's saying, well, if
Yeah.
he's the only one that can't do it, what about Friday the 22nd? Nora, could you do Friday the 22nd? Yes. Evening? Whatever. Oh, it doesn't have to be evening because Tawny's all day available. So what time, so we could do just November 22nd, overnight accommodation. Kalen won't be here. What time is best for everybody else? 11? 10? 10 to noon?
Yeah, that's good. That's fine.
Okay. 10 to noon, November 22nd. And December 6th, what time did we say? 9 to noon. Well, do we want to go ahead and just say 10 to noon for that as well? Since we're just doing one, we're just doing budget.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
great job. All right, we got it. Done. Thank you, Kalen. That was good. We're going to do budget on December 6th, and we're going to do overnight accommodations on November 22nd.
And then again on December 10th on the regular agenda. And then the 16th if needed.
Yep. In the week of, but probably even Monday the 16th.
Budget is the 6th.
So November 22nd is overnight accommodations, 10 to noon. Friday, December 6th is budget, 10 to noon.
Okay.
And then December 10th will be the regular scheduled meeting. And then we'll have December 16th if we need it. And then if we don't need it, then December 10th would be the only meeting we had for the month of December.
Sounds good. That was good. That was hard.
Can we get an invite on all those, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We will have staff meeting in the morning and I'll have
Thank you.
the recorder's office send all that out.
Okay, Joel, what else do you have for us?
I'll be quick. Let's see. The sewer rates we have coming up on the next agenda, they're on the list of things to be brought back up, Mike, so we're preparing that material for you guys. Board assignments we pulled and we had stuck on this agenda, and just because it was so close to the elections and everything else and everything, we pulled it. We have it scheduled to be on the next agenda. We can do it at the next agenda. We can do it in January, which is traditionally what we've done, but I'd propose we do it at the next agenda just because we are what we are at this point. It's up to you guys.
I'm good with that.
Okay. The WRF was awarded the wastewater treatment plant of the year by the Rural Water Association of Utah. So that's on top of Greg, who was awarded the operator of the year. That award is being given in Salt Lake next Thursday night at a banquet. Is there anyone who will already be in Salt Lake? I knew that was too optimistic. Okay,
No.
awesome. I want to thank Biga and Mike and the volunteers for doing the Moab showdown. I know that when we started that adventure, it was a one-time thing, but man, I hope they do it again. I want to thank the community for participating. There was 10 teams, and they were all local. And when we started, we thought if we got 1 or 2 local, and the rest would be outside coming in to do it, and every one of them was local. And Star Hall was standing room only. I mean, it was a ton of fun. And so I hope they do it again. And if you didn't get to go, I hope you go next year if they do it, if you get the chance to, because it was a riot. So, and then lastly, the turkey trots, the 16th. Other than that, that's about all I have to report. Everything we've been working on is on the agenda for tonight. And then the stuff that's not on the agenda we've been working on is coming on the next agenda or two. So it's all just steaming right towards you, so no worries there. And then lastly, the canvas that we had put on for approval tonight, we are going to ask you to table that when we get to it, or just not take action on it. It's not quite, we don't quite have all the information from the county, and it's not ready to be canvassed. Well, we do have the information from the
The
county. I should
clerk's
say.
office would like more
Yeah,
time.
basically the amount of votes that are still out theoretically could create a.
They want more time to process the provisional ballots.
There you go. Thank you.
So we won't be doing that item tonight.
Yep, thanks. That's it.
Thanks, Joel. Carly, do you have something?
That's a great point. The problem with that is because we had planned initially, Mayor, that we were gonna have a meeting on the 19th to approve them. And we will have to have a meeting before the 19th to approve the canvass the election. Because we have to, by state law, do it within 7 to 14 days. And that's why we did it. So we just need 3 of you here for literally 3 minutes. We'll notice the meeting, approve the canvass the election, and then be done with it. But that needs, we'll have to do that before next Tuesday.
Can you do it Friday morning?
Okay,
Yeah, we could do it Friday,
okay.
this Friday, the 15th.
Like at 8?
Yeah. Do it whenever we get 3 of you here to say
Yeah.
aye.
Great.
So we'll get that scheduled up for Friday.
I can't come. Are there 3 people who can be here then?
I can be
This coming Friday?
Yeah, the 15th. We could do it Monday, the following week.
Oh, we can't do it Friday then.
Can't do that either.
or
We'll
the
figure
19th.
this out offline. We'll
Okay.
figure this out.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay. Chief?
Mayor, council, thank you for giving me a few minutes tonight to fill you in on some of the things that have been happening with this police department. It's been a couple months since I last sat in front of you, so it'll be a little bit longer than usual, but I'll make it as brief as possible. I'd like to start by congratulating Ronnie, Tawny, and Kaylin on your recent reelection. I look forward to working with all of you for another 4 years. Some of you may be aware that our firearms range sits on land that is leased from Sitla. And in 2010, we were ordered by Sitla to begin cleaning it up, doing lead mitigation. There was no mobile home trailer that had been used for close quarters combat training, and they ordered us to clean that up. Nothing had happened in the last 9 years until I accepted this position, and then I made it a priority to start cleaning it up. So I tasked our 2 range masters, Sergeant Woodard and Sergeant Boots, with cleaning it up, and they've gotten after it with zeal. So there were some old burn barrels and the trailer that was out there had been completely removed, and we have gotten estimates for the lead cleanup and remediation. It's not going to be cheap, but it has to be done. So that project is moving ahead, I'm happy to say. Some more good news on the staffing front. I've been with the department for about 13 and a half We have one member in the academy right now graduating in December, and we have another member starting in January. And assuming that we don't lose anybody between now and when the member starting in January graduates, we will be at full staff. So that is pretty impressive, and it's certainly going to allow us to do more proactive law enforcement than we've been able to do in the past. That said, I have to throw out the caveat that even at full staff of 17 officers, it's not enough. So we won't be able to do everything that we need to do and that we want to do, but it's a start. We have initiated a traffic study program, and what that entails, it's kind of primarily focused around neighborhood traffic issues. So a citizen will call and say, people are speeding down my street, and then we will deploy our radar trailer, which gathers not only, I'm sure you've driven by it, it flashes your speed when you drive by. It doesn't just flash your speed, it also gathers data from everybody who drives by in either direction. And it gathers a tremendous amount of data. We get average speed, the maximum speeds, the times of day that traffic is going through, the number of cars traveling in both directions, daily breakdowns of that. So we get a ton of data that we can kind of crunch and analyze to figure out when is the best time. And first of all, if there is an issue, and if there is, when would be the best time for us to assign officers to do additional enforcement on those roads. So we started doing that in response to a citizen complaint. The first one that we did was on Mountain View, and we've since done one on Mill Creek and 300 South. We have 2 more that we just finished. I think one of them was on Cane Creek, and I can't remember where the other one is.
Woodside?
What's that?
Was there one on Woodside?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're kind of working through that process, and we're seeing success with it. During the enforcement, we're keeping statistics so that we know how many stops the officers are getting, how many citations or warnings are being issued, and how much of an impact that we're likely to make on the traffic issue. So, I think it's the first time that the department has really dedicated time and effort and resources to doing something like this. But when citizens call, they feel that there's a complaint in the neighborhood, we have to address it. So we're glad that we're able to do this. We have one radar trailer now. We're working on a grant for another one. They're about $7,000. If we're approved for that grant, then we'll get a second trailer that we can deploy in another location. As it is right now, we can only do one at a time with that trailer. So hopefully we'll get the grant for the trailer. The other study that we just started, and this is more of a short-term kind of informal study, is an OHV study. There's a perception in the public that OHVs are, that the majority of them are running around without proper equipment and without proper registration. So what we're trying to do right now is to determine how many of them, what percentage of them really are operating without registration. My perception is that fewer of them are operating without registration than I think the general public feels there are. We've dedicated almost 9 hours so far to doing a traffic study on that. We've identified 166 OHVs during that time. And we're not doing any enforcement. It's literally parking a cop on the side of the road with a sheet of paper, and they count them as they go by, registered, not registered. Right now, we're at about a 9% unregistered. So it's not really anything greater than you would see with regular vehicles on the road. It's just not as much of an issue as I think it's perceived. And that is also something to note. Not every state who allows them on the road issues license plates. I know of at least 2 states who only issue a sticker. So you might see one running down the street that doesn't have a license plate on it. It could still be street legal because it has a street legal sticker on it. State of Utah doesn't require you to have a plate. It just has to be registered street legal in your home state. So if your home state issues a sticker, you're legal. But we're still going through that. We want to do more of it. I don't feel like 166 units counted is sufficient for us to know, empirically whether or not this is as big of an issue as it's perceived to be. So I'm sure that next spring, when people start coming back to Moab, we'll do some more studies and see what kind of counts we can get out of that.
Chief, real quick, Joel, did you have
No,
something?
I just want to comment when he's done.
Oh, and I think Kaylin might have a comment also.
Question. I'm under the impression that in addition to registration, they also need to meet the Utah equipment requirements.
Correct.
So, is that being monitored as well, or is, are you just looking?
From the roadside with them driving by, there's really no way to do that. Some of the issues that people have brought to our attention are windshields, turn signals, DOT tires, and the state does not require windshields. It requires eye protection. So if you don't have a windshield but you're wearing eyeglasses, that qualifies as eye protection. The turn signals on most of the modern machines are built into the brake lights, so you don't even see them unless they're actually activated. The ones that are aftermarket kits, the turn signals are little amber lights that are about the size of a dime, and they're really hard to spot unless they're activated as well. So I can tell you that when they were first made street legal, we spent probably 2 years hammering them, literally hammering them. And at that time, it was definitely a significant issue. I think education has gotten out. I think the public has learned that you cannot come to Moab and it's not the wild, wild west. You can't just come out and drive whatever you want on the roads. And we're not seeing as many of them operating illegally, either without registration or without the proper equipment that we used to. Mm-hmm. They're loud. The tires are loud, the mufflers are loud. There isn't a whole lot we can do about that. But from the perspective of operating legally, I think most of them are. The vast majority of them are. Other questions about
Yeah,
those?
just one. I heard somewhere that maybe it's rental companies in town, or maybe people driving into town are equipping their vehicles with quieter mufflers. Of course, the noise has been a big issue with them. So have you seen evidence of that? I mean,
I can't really comment on whether I have or not. Some of them do from the factory are just a lot quieter than others.
Yeah.
So, whether you can buy aftermarket mufflers or exhaust that's quieter or not, I don't know. But I have noticed, because I actually went out for this OHV study and I spent 5 hours of my time starting it for the department. And, some of them go by and you can hear them coming 3 blocks away, and other ones go by and, they might as well just be a hybrid. Like, you can barely even hear them come by. They're not any noisier than others, so they kind of run the gamut.
thank you.
Chief, I know it's not city territory, but off of 313, there's lots of areas to go ATVing. And is it, my reading of it is that you can't drive a UTV at miles above 55, on highways that are 65 and over, is that correct?
No, you can operate them as long as you've got all the proper equipment and the registration. You can't exceed 50 miles per hour, and you have to operate on the right side of the road.
Okay, so
So
being on 191 is
all the way up to
totally
I-70, they're
legit.
perfectly
Okay.
legal.
Okay,
As long as you're on the side of the road going less than that speed limit.
As long as you're not doing more than 50 miles an hour and you're not operating in the left.
left lane. Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, those were good.
Ronnie, did you have anything?
I just went back to the citizen request to check speed limits. I was just curious, out of the number of different locations you've gone to, because you were saying, sometimes you have to determine first if there's actually even an issue. Out of the total number of requests you got where you guys went out and moved the trailer around, how many did you find that there was an issue where it was, from the data, where it was worth?
The one on Mountain View definitely showed that there was an issue. Not substantial,
Yeah.
but there was an issue. The one on 300 South is a substantial issue. Speed limit's 20, it used to be 25. The main number that you look at when you're doing traffic studies is what's called the 85th percentile, and what that number is the percentage of vehicles that are doing at or below the speed limit. The 85th percentile in this case was 24 miles per hour. So the speed limit used to be 25, it was lowered to 20. 85% of the vehicles that are driving on 300 South are doing 24 or less. So when you look at a number like that, it gives you real cause to stop and consider, maybe the speed limit should be 25. So the 300 South showed a significant issue. Mill Creek showed some issue, and I haven't reviewed the data yet from the other two.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. The Grand County School District went through the process of writing a grant earlier this year that they did receive, I want to say it was through the Department of Justice. It's a significant grant, and we participated minimally. They did all the work to write the grant, and we greatly appreciate that. But we did write a letter of support, and as part of the grant, they were able to get sufficient money to purchase 7 portable radios for the police department, 3 portable magnetometers, and $5,000 for training for anything related to community policing, school safety, active shooter, et cetera. So we're incredibly grateful that they included us in that grant because, you know, when you look at the radios, they're $4,000 a pop. And we got 7 of them. $5,000 for training, and you know we're super lucky to have the training budget that we do. It's substantially higher than it has been in the past, but you can never have too much training, especially around things revolving around school safety. So we're very thankful to have that money coming in that we can use for training. Last topic on the topic of, or on the while we're talking about training is the way we run the department, all patrol officers are also investigators. We're too small of a department to be able to go take a call and then send that off to investigations. So every single patrol officer is also an investigator / detective. What we do send to the investigations division is serious crimes. So anything that's a Class A or a felony, the officer responds, they take the initial report, and then it goes over to the investigations division who completes that investigation. Anything that's a Class B, Class C, or an infraction is going to be investigated by the patrol officer. So when you go through the academy, you get like a day and a half of basic investigative skills, training, which is insufficient. We do some on the job as much as possible, but I've long been an advocate of sending every single patrol officer through training that's a new investigator training. So anytime someone is promoted or moves into a detective training, there's a week-long detective class that they go to where they learn how to be a detective. And so we are going to be sending every patrol officer over the next 2 to 3 years through new investigator training so that their skill level, they have the skills and they're comfortable in performing those minor investigations. We can't ask them to go do those investigations if they don't have the skills, the equipment, and the training. So going forward, they will all attend that basic investigator training. We have Jason Schatz, he's the top DUI defense attorney in Utah. Not generally really well liked by cops, but he did a report writing training for us several years ago that was exceptional. And we're bringing him back down. I want to say it's in February, and he's going to do another report writing class for us. So we're really excited to have him come down, and he's not just doing that for us. We're inviting all local agencies, so the Sheriff's Office, Highway Patrol, they'll all be invited to come and participate in the class. I think that'll go a long way to helping our officers write better reports and get higher level of prosecutions. That's all I've got for you.
Thank you, Chief.
I want to thank you, Chief. Obviously, on the OHV front, it leaves a lot to be done on the legislative end. It's where we kind of find ourselves. So, and then lastly, Mayor, thanks, Chief. I want to real quickly welcome Lori Simonson on board with the city. She started with us about 3-4 weeks ago. She is the city attorney. She's in-house, and it's already starting to pick up greatly, and we're starting to really find some things that we need to clean up, and it's already paying off dividends, and I want to thank her for coming on board. It's a thankless job. It is a job where you don't get to give a staff report. Your staff report is always done in a closed session, and so the public doesn't know what you do. And you're like a lineman in a football team. You only get noticed when stuff's going wrong. So I appreciate her, and I want to welcome her and tell her thanks. So that's it.
Thanks, Joel. Want to say anything?
You didn't tell me any of that when we interviewed.
I knew what I was doing.
No, I want to say this is a dream come true for me, and I very much look forward to working with such a thoughtful, conscientious, hardworking city council, and I've already seen how hardworking and great the staff are. It's a dream come true, and it's just a dream team of people to work with, so I'm happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're so
Yeah,
happy
thank
you're
you.
here. Big shoes to fill.
Yes.
Yes.
Lots of years of shoes he wore.
And, yes.
Yeah, and Chris McEnany has already provided, he's a great resource, and we will continue to have him help the city as well.
Well, welcome. And now we are moving on to section 6, citizens to be heard. Evan Tyrell.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Excuse me, my name is Evan Tyrrell. I'm the district
Oh, I'm
manager
sorry.
for
Tyrrell.
the Solid Waste District, Special Service District number 1. I guess my last name is hard to pronounce, but I don't typically correct people. First, I'd like to congratulate the recently re-elected incumbents on the city council. Congratulations. So I'm here to basically discuss one of the items on the agenda today, which is related to the Sustainability Action Plan. That's the draft. As it pertains to Goal 4 for waste diversion. So let me first off explain the solid waste district. We manage the local community recycle center as well as the 2 landfills in Grand County. The recycle center has been around since 1991. It was originally started with a nonprofit, Canyonlands Community Recycling, and it's been there for quite some time. We're approaching a 30-year mark. So we were created for multiple reasons. One is to manage the landfill, the Klondike facility in Grand County. The city of Moab basically gave us the authority to manage the operation of the Moab landfill quite some time ago, but we're also created to operate a recycling program in Grand County as well as otherwise manage solid waste in Grand County. So basically that resolution delegated us as basically holistic management of waste throughout the county in the city and so forth and so on. So as it relates to the Sustainability Action Plan, just a few overall comments. One thing that is prevalent is that we are almost entirely excluded from the plan as a whole in the Sustainability Action Plan as it pertains to Goal 4, waste management and recycling. The local community recycle center is completely omitted. There's no mention of it whatsoever. To me, I feel like that is a very prominent service that's provided to the community for such a long period of time, and I strongly feel that it has served as a major catalyst towards sustainability in Moab and Grand County as a whole. But overall, I'm mainly advocating, and I did send a rather long email to the council today. I tried to keep it short, but the more I kind of looked into it, I had some other comments pertaining to it. I'm not going to get into all those, but basically I'm advocating that we as the Solid Waste District are basically included in the discussion, that we are here to support the plan, but also to be supporting the developments and execution of the goals and the strategies that are included in there to hopefully make them successful and also realistic to that degree. The goals are quite optimistic. I think that they can be attained, but I do feel that we should have some additional consultation involved and kind of reevaluate a few of the items. One is the growing waste streams that we've seen at the Klondike landfill. From 2013 to 2018, we saw a 42% increase in just the municipal solid waste that was delivered to that facility based on tonnages. So it was about 9,000 tons in 2013 and almost 13,000 tons last year. The benchmarks that are included on the plan are listed as 2016. Based on the data I have available, I've not been able to substantiate those numbers, and I feel like we could provide some much more practical numbers for 2019 as we approach the year end. So I'm hoping that we could maybe provide some information to the city and help to provide more appropriate benchmarks at this time as we've seen these growing waste volumes.
I don't mean to cut you off, we just try to limit comments to 3 minutes.
Okay.
But I do want to say thank you for your comments today, and that also I want to make sure that each of us did receive the email from you and had a chance to
It was a
review
great
it.
letter, thank you.
So
Okay, so my 3 minutes up?
they are.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate it. If you have any questions, you guys know how to get a hold of me, so.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
for your time.
for commenting, and hopefully you stick around for the discussion. Charlotte.
My name is Charlotte Mates, and I'm a citizen of Moab City for the last 20 years. And tonight I just wanted to reemphasize the need for a sustainability plan. My understanding is that it is impossible to get the funding for the federal funds or funds for grants for transportation until you have a sustainability plan in place. So I'm all about that, and I understand that in working with some of the council members or talking to them that the plans for the parking garage include possible shuttle in town. And regarding that, I wanted to just say that when I went to the Citizens Climate Lobby Conference in Boulder, Colorado with two of our other members, was able to listen to a speaker who converts buses to electric buses. So that is a possibility for cost savings, and I just wanted to put that out and make sure that you are aware that that information is there, and I will try to get who is the best person for me to get a copy of that to.
You can send it to me and to Joel, and then also Karen's been serving on the transportation subcommittee.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, great.
yeah.
I'll get that to you, and we'll see if that can be helpful. And again, thank you, and thank you all for your service, and congratulations to the newly re-elected city council members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron. Welcome.
My name's Aaron Lindberg. I work on the Grand County Trail Mix. We talked a lot about e-bikes today. Understand you guys are reconsidering some designation for the bike paths. The bike paths go up to Bar M and out to Grandstaff Canyon, whatnot. We're just going to be advising not to change any rules until there's a lot of confusion in the BLM on making a policy. In town, all I would like to say is, like, as we kind of develop and have more active transportation, this is a hot item. Like, a lot of people are commuting more and more, and with e-bikes, you can, we're having these things. I don't know if any of you've tried them before, but you can easily go 20 miles per hour, and you're putting these onto bike paths that, you know, moms are pushing strollers with toddlers, and you've suddenly got somebody pushing a 50, 60-pound bike at easily 20 mile per hour speeds that, you know, so I think this is going to become an issue in the future. You know, I would just say keep it illegal right now to ride an e-bike on the bike path. If you have somebody that is riding on the bike path, like hit a kid or something, that liability is all going to be on them, instead of like maybe the city for allowing that. I mean, you know, how's this enforcement going to go and all this? I think it's great. More people are getting, you know, transporting or commuting by bike and whatnot. But it's definitely, we've got questions of how we're going to use like Mill Creek Parkway and whatnot. So, thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. Paul? Welcome. Hi.
I'm Paul Spencer. I'm chair of Trailmix, and yes, we get a lot of discussion. We have spent a lot of time recently on getting the word out. There's been huge confusion over e-bikes because of the media, including, unfortunately, some local media and YouTube and others saying they're legal, they're not. At the moment, the BLM is status quo. They are still illegal everywhere they were illegal. If it says non-motorized, that means no motors, no e-bikes. I sent you all a letter, and I have some print copies. Trail Mix would like to encourage City Council to do two things. One is, please don't make any regulations yet. The BLM is in their thought process. They may not, they may have some exemptions, but they're processing it through their process. If Moab changes theirs, first of all, they may not mesh. So if you have a trail that goes from one land to the other, you may have this line on e-bikes are not allowed halfway down the path, which would make no sense. So if you wait until they do their process and then we can all work together, that's the second thing, is city and county and BLM and Trail Mix would love to help facilitate that, is to get one set of regulations for the entire valley, including Spanish Valley, that makes sense so that people can use these as a commute vehicle and not get halfway to work and then legally have to stop.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Sheik.
Sheik Khan, sitting in for Jeff Pillis at SIT Engineering for the Hillside Development application that's in. Thank you guys for putting the application on the agenda, and congratulations to the council member for your re-election. I just wanted to make a couple of points as far as the justification for the Hillside development. And you guys can read it in the packet, but I think one of the big pieces here is that on the owner's own expense, they're looking at adding 24 additional parking spots to this property. As you know, parking's been a kind of a contentious topic over the last few months, and congratulations for the city really stepping up and doing something with the parking garage. But this particular issue is that the UDOT expansion is forcing about 7 parking spots that's being taken away from Main Street. And as you know, most of those spots are really used for oversized rigs and RVs. So adding the 24 really is kind of, again, absorbing the dispersion that's happening by the UDOT expansion. And historically, you know, what we end up doing is that if you can't find parking on Main Street, that parking really goes into the neighborhood areas. So I think, again, I think this may be a great, good addition to the property, as it, again, on the property owner's own expense, adding 24 additional parking spots to the downtown area. So there's some additional engineering comments that said engineering will be addressing, and it will be addressing as well. So please look forward to getting your support for the conditional approval. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you all for coming in to speak. We are moving now on to old business. 7.1, presentation and acceptance of fiscal year 2018-2019 annual audit of the city of Moab. John, Rachel. We did receive an email earlier, just earlier today. Well, you could. Are you going to talk at all, or no? Just choose your support blanket or animal. Welcome.
I'll be brief. Thank you for letting me come and visit with the council.
Thanks for coming.
We really appreciate working with the city. We feel like we've had a long relationship, and it's been a good relationship. Attorney, you're going to get an assignment from Rachel tomorrow.
Already.
Sweet.
Tomorrow is here.
Sean, don't say scary things like that when
It's
you're...
It's an easy assignment. And if you need last year's letter, just let me know.
Jeez.
Give it to you.
What's the soundtrack for this one?
I won't go through a whole lot of the financial statements because I know you want it brief. I know it's going to be a long meeting. So what I'll do is I'll just present the findings. There were no material findings that we would report in the financial statement reports, either the audit report, the government auditing status report, or the state compliance report.
Good job, city.
Yeah, but there is a couple of things that I need to talk about. So there is one written finding, and it's a budgetary compliance. It's just that the sewer fund was over budget this year. So that just, our recommendation is just that the council should be receiving budget to actual reports periodically and consistently throughout the year. And we just recommend that you review those and make sure that you're not coming to the point where, you know, according to state code, you really can't spend the money without having it properly budgeted for to begin with. And I know sometimes we get a little lazy and we spend the money and then we go back and amend the budget. I'm not telling you to do that, but just know where you're at budget-wise for everything, and then if you need to have a public hearing to amend a budget, then have it taken care of. And especially at the end of the year is a good time to just kind of review all the funds. So that's the one written finding. The other finding that is not a written finding but could potentially be a finding is the Mill Creek Fund went into a deficit net position this year. Not large, I think it's between 15 and 20,000. And then the water fund went into a deficit unrestricted net position by about 30,000. What that means is there's plenty of fund balance there, but a lot of it's tied up in capital assets. And then there's about 970 that's tied up in construction funds. And so assets minus assets equals liabilities plus equity, right? So with the liabilities and then what's left over is a negative 33,000. So you went into a negative unrestricted fund balance. So what does that mean? The state just requires that in the next upcoming year, you have to budget to either reduce that by 5% of the revenue, or if it's a small enough amount that it's less than the 5%, that you just eradicate that deficit within the next year. So if it was a large deficit, then you would have to reduce it 5% a year until it was gone, until it gets down to small enough to where it's easily done within the next year. So to prevent something of a finding next year, then our recommendation would just be to budget for and really just eradicate those deficit net positions. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I thought you were gonna say something.
I'll just mention, as far as the sewer fund, we did a budget opening at the end of last year, and the overages were due to operational costs that were unanticipated from the new water reclamation facility. So a lot of those costs we tried to anticipate as best we could, but until the final utility bills came in, we were making an educated guess, and we were off by, how much were we over, 30,000? We were off.
Yeah, but when we reviewed it, like Rachel said, there wasn't any long-term concerns that I could see that I would feel to address. I understand the reasoning. I understand that there was some inaccurate data. The city did the best job they could. It didn't happen. But I think that going forward, you're gonna have a better idea of what it costs in that fund to operate that new facility. So I don't really foresee any problems. So that's all I have. If you have questions on the financial statements, I am always available by phone. Don't call my office, call my cell phone, because I'm rarely in the office. I'm usually traveling somewhere. But I'm always open for questions, concerns, things like that. And thanks again for letting us come and visit with you guys.
Thank you so much, John. Is there a motion to accept the audit?
So moved.
Thank you, Kalen. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Thanks, Mike. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
It passes, yeah.
Thanks, John.
So two concerns that you raised, are they listed in
Yeah,
writing
no,
here?
they're not written, but
Okay.
just because this is gonna go to the state auditor,
Yeah.
and that really isn't a finding yet, but I just figured I would bring it up, because the only way that it would potentially would be a finding is if it still was in a deficit position next year and it didn't reduce by 5%. So, that being said, they're not really findings, it's just our recommendations going forward for the next period.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. Okay, moving right along. 7-2, discussion of draft Walnut Lane Apartments RFP. Caitlin? And is anyone else joining Caitlin? Barry? Great.
A quick presentation that Barry will help me with. We'll find out.
We have a remote control for these two TVs. I'll grab it if you don't have it.
Okay, so before we talk about the RFP, I just wanted for Barry and I to kind of give you a general update and on the project and everything that's going on, as well as to kind of give you a refresher on what the old RFP, RFQ was that went out earlier this summer. So just really quickly, general project updates. I think also this will kind of clarify some of the questions that some of you had. So we are in the process of rezoning to R4. That should go to DRT tomorrow, and hopefully will go to Planning Commission in December. So we are moving forward with that, and hopefully that'll come to you guys for approval in January. It's definitely a goal to have that done even before we select a consultant, hopefully, but definitely it'll be done by early next year. So Barry's also working on, he had a bid for removing 6 additional trailers. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, part of the problem with this project is how do we build without making anybody homeless? So through natural attrition and a fire, we've gotten rid of 2 trailers. We have 6 more that are vacant that we're going to get rid of. There may be a 7th one in the next month or so. That has largely created a vacant spot on that right-hand side. You can see the red X's and a couple of yellow ones. So we're hoping to use that space to start off with. We did get a bid for the trailer removals. Bill Winfield provided us a bid on that. He's hoping to have a couple of the trailers gone before December and do the rest after the holidays. We had good communication with solid waste. They've been helpful in the health department in helping us get rid of these and dispose of them. Every one of them so far has had some asbestos. None of it's friable, which is good. And it's all been easily manageable at this point. Things are going well that way. So hopefully by the time we have some contractors figured out and plan, we'll have a good empty spot to put some buildings to start phase 1.
And I'll talk more in depth about that later. I have pages for that, so. And then I don't know if you want
Yeah, the maintenance down there has been a challenge. As you know, the homes are in rough shape. We've been continually talking with the property management folks about what they're doing, fixing things. Understanding in June, when we started talking with them, there were 2 trailers that didn't have any hot water. There were a couple more that didn't have air conditioning. Quite a few had broken windows. So those things are all being repaired, taken care of. The heat in all of those is supposed to be up and functional. So that's the tenants, that's good news. We have talked with Triassic and Bill Winfield about the trees. They're all in pretty bad shape. There's 3 or 4 that we think we can save and maybe a 5th. But generally they're all gonna have to go. They're all rotten on the inside. They're dropping big branches or they're blocking fire access. So the majority of those are gonna go after we get rid of the trailers. It'll give them some room to get rid of those. The tenants, we've kind of been trying to visit with them when we're down there just to say hi, let them know that we're involved. Caitlin and I have been talking about planning to go door to door in a couple of weeks, and then to let them know about a neighborhood meeting in December, where we'll explain to them kind of where we're at and what we're hoping to do going forward. We're also hoping to get some input from them on kind of what they'd like to see. I don't know how willing they'll be able to do that, but we're going to ask them anyway.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. So going more into the RFP, going back to the RFP that was published in July, that was a request for proposals and qualifications. Based on the responses and the required submission materials, I would say that it's a lot more like an RFI or an RFQ and not as much like an RFP. But to give you a quick refresher on that, Tracy wrote this proposing for a redevelopment into 80 units, with 80% being deed restricted at or below 80% AMI and 16 market rate units. Proposed design of 15 or more buildings with a manufactured panel system, range of bedroom sizes. One of the biggest things that struck me, and I saw the RFP as it was circulating a little bit, but wasn't really, most of my familiarity with the RFP is since I've come on as staff. So this is just kind of my impression, is that there was a high emphasis on sustainability for this redevelopment. And that was kind of the major theme through all of it, especially building to zero energy standards, requirements for proposals to include experience with the Living Building Challenge or LEED or Energy Star or Enterprise Green Communities or something like that. So that's a lot of the response that we got, was mostly multifamily, pretty high density projects, really green, sustainable projects, but pretty expensive projects. So that's just to kind of give you a piece of what the proposals look like. But financed through taxable bonds, grants, equity investments, most likely through low-income housing tax credits. He broke that proposal.
Sorry, not through tax credits, specifically not through tax credits.
Not through tax credits. No, it was, is that, I was.
Oh, it's just
No, I was
it was
under
a
the,
point of, just because of our not wanting to utilize any funding that would make it.
Exclude tenants.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So tax credits would do that.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we're looking at using the same kind of financing mechanisms moving forward, so that's good to know. But just briefly, he broke the proposals into two contracts, one for feasibility, schematic design, phasing, general evaluation of engineering and design, and then the second contract more for pre-development and development services, so preparation of construction, design, engineering documents, cost analysis, construction administration, construction management. And kind of broke that into first contract would be signed after the RFP, and then the second contract, second two phases would be contingent upon satisfaction with work product. And again, just some of the submission requirements, that most of the requirements were pretty normal RFP stuff. But notably for me, it was kind of focused on experience and examples of projects with sustainable certificate programs, with ADA, with working with housing authorities and other, quote, green projects. And again, was asking more for evidence of a firm's ability to provide services, but wasn't asking for bids or timelines or financial proposals or anything. So we received 5 responses for that RFP, and I saw in one of Tracy's agenda summaries that he sent it to 5 firms, so I don't know if those 5 firms that he sent it to were the ones that applied, but so moving forward, I would like to open it up to more firms. So that's kind of, moving into where we are now, sending it back out to RFP, going from a request for information or request for qualifications. It's kind of a natural next step to go to RFP and ask for proposals. So we definitely will be sending this back out to the 5 firms, but I also want to open it up to other local firms that have expressed interest to me, and other kind of regional project development teams that didn't hear about it on the first go around but are interested enough to go the full mile and do all the work that's required for an RFP. So kind of as Barry was saying earlier, we are in the process of removing 6 additional trailers. And so we think that we have identified a pretty solid location for our first phase. We have those 2 trailers in the southeastern corner, trailer 1 and trailer 3, that are not included currently. And so since we'll be moving trailers all over the site, we'll be most likely moving them. We're still trying to figure out where exactly on the site we would move them, but that's the plan, is to relocate those. And then you can kind of see right here, we are also talking about potentially moving this trailer or this trailer to allow for fire access right here as well.
And there's some legal questions we're still working through as to whether or not if we move them, we can re-let them.
Yep.
Yeah, because they're pre-76.
Yeah. So we got a lot of legal issues that we got to work through. But that's kind of, in this RFP, that's what we're proposing as phase 1, just because that's where we naturally are going to have the most room to build. So we are asking for development teams to kind of, we on our staff side are kind of talking at this point about it being an apartment building, and hopefully we'll be able to move most of the families, or a good portion of the families, into that apartment building to allow for more space in later phases. But we are opening it up to project teams to propose what they think that can fit in that space.
And so we're looking for your guys' input as to how you see it as well. The idea as staff in that first phase being an apartment building isn't that we see this entire project as apartment buildings, but we have to have somewhere to put the current residents to get the rest of the property to open up to be able to remove the other units. The goal has been for us is to not displace anyone. We have not, I mean, we have evicted, I think, 2 people, but it's not for reasons that are our choosing. There have been some issues that I don't really want to go into here, but the ones that are empty have been moved out of, not we have evicted people. So as people have moved out, if we could re-let them after reviewing that trailer, then we put them back into the market. The ones that we have taken out of the market has been because, as we've done inspections, they just aren't up to a standard that we feel comfortable letting them again. So we're trying to keep as many into the marketplace as we can as we could do this project. It would defeat the whole purpose to go in and move everyone out and take this housing off the market. The whole reason the city purchased this was to keep this low-income housing still, to keep it there. So that's the goal. So I don't want the idea to be that we are seeing apartment complex all throughout this project. That's not the case. But we do see potentially phase 1 being one, just in order to be able to move everyone that's there potentially into that facility. And then that would free up the space to have either like a second apartment, single units in the back. Like, I don't know what you guys envision, but that's kind of how we're proceeding in order to be able to free up the project.
Thanks, Joel. Yeah, so I'll just go really quickly, high level, kind of same thing through the RFP. I changed the target population just so that it followed directly what the pad requirements are, because I know that the city, at this point at least, anticipates to redevelop this using the pad. So that requires only 70% to be deed restricted to the pad requirements. That's why those numbers changed from the initial 64 to 56.
Would you like feedback from the council? Because that's a big change.
Sure.
How does the council feel about that?
My hope is that this selected team will provide us feedback. Like, here's option 1, which meets the minimum affordability standards, but maybe goes further on sustainability, and vice versa. Like, really high achievement for affordability, but maybe not so far on sustainability, and then something in between. And hopefully early in the process, just based on sort of rough pro formas.
Yeah. Yeah, that, I mean.
And then we would select, like,
Pick our
based
poison.
on that sort of more substantive feedback that they give us.
Sure.
Yeah, Kayla, so if I may.
Sure.
So Kayla, you had a line in there that said that a bidder would be given priority if they suggested more affordable units rather than fewer. And that's fine, but does that, I mean, what my question would be, what happens if a particular bidder, in order to increase his priority, says, well, I'm going to build all affordable units, it's no skin off my back, so to speak, but it might make it more expensive for the future operator or owner to operate, which may not be in the city's best interest. So it seems like it's kind of a disconnect in the contract to me.
Right.
To phrase it that way.
And I think I can clarify that language further, but my point was trying to get more at what Kaylin's talking about is I wanted to make it more flexible, that the city is trying to balance affordability, sustainability, doing this in a timely manner and not just emphasizing affordability or sustainability with this.
And I agree with what Kaylin said. I guess in the end, my opinion is that we're building affordable housing. I mean, it would be nice to make them with all the latest, greatest environmental tools and certified and all that kind of good stuff. But if for some reason, and I'd like to go as far as we can, but in the end, if some of that has to get sacrificed to make them affordable, I vote for making them affordable.
Right.
I'll just make the point that part of what makes a unit affordable over time is energy efficiency. So, but I mean, I think we're all on the same page of what we're,
And I think one thing to keep in mind is, and I don't want to speak for you guys because you guys tell us what to do. From a staff's perspective, we're approaching this as Walnut Lane is round one. Like none of us are approaching this like we get Walnut Lane done and we can be done with this type of a project. We're looking at this like, how do we do this the first go around and get to where we can go and get property with another partner and do this again? And the goal for us is to be sustainable at the highest level. I don't know if that's in the first project we do or in the third project we do, but we're all trying to learn as we go on how to get better at this and get to that goal to where they're penciling, we're making enough money that they're sustainable financially, and get to that goal where they're all as a collective, 3, 4, 5 projects, they're sustainable, supporting each other, and maybe these ones are complete green standard, living building challenge, and the first ones we do aren't so much, but as a portfolio, they sustain one another, and we can get to that point. Maybe that's not what the council views, and that's not how you want to do it, but I want you to know that we have this overarching view of this isn't the end game for us, and so if these ones aren't as sustainable initially, that's what we lose. No, that's the project in order to get us to the next step.
You want to keep going?
Sure. Yeah, so, I mean, like Joel said, it's going to be a mix of apartments and other housing sizes. Most likely the first phase will be apartments, but that's part of the reason why one of the first contracts is going to be creating a phasing plan and saying, creating a master plan saying, yes, these are going to be apartments, but this is how the apartment complex fits into the context of the development, and here are all of the unit sizes. So we definitely want to see a mix of those typologies, and we are interested to see what project teams have, and we want people to get creative with that. Not just with unit types, but also with kind of the landscape architecture and making it a walkable community and having shared spaces and community amenities for the families that live there. And again, I mean, we want to give priority and we want to find a good balance between affordability and sustainability. So we're changing from requiring certain energy certification standards to striving to meet those standards, and even to the point of, I mean, standards are really great, they're also really expensive, and so looking at ways to implement those strategies, but also making it an affordable development. So, using the same financing mechanisms. Just a quick breakdown of the contracts. It follows pretty similarly to The three that Tracy had in his, it adds, just explicitly adds a project management component to that. But the other three follow the same three contracts that he had from pre-development through construction.
So there's 3 contracts?
So it's written as starting with one,
Okay.
and continuing on to future phases as long as the work product is satisfactory.
Okay, because a contract is often used singularly, except at one point it
Right.
says contract 1 and 2, and now I'm hearing that there's 3 contracts, and so it seems like,
Can you go back to your slide that shows that?
and if this is a draft, then maybe just make it consistent so that the
Yeah.
respondents understand what you're asking for.
Yeah, and I got your note on that, and Chuck also made that note, so that was just, me reworking and working through some of that, but.
And how many units for phase one?
It's not spelled out explicitly in this RFP right now. I think at this point, staff is thinking between 18 and 24.
Yeah, we did a quick search online just for some apartments that would fit in that space, just kind of a basic floor plan. And 18 to 25 could fit in there, 3 stories, and leave a little bit of room for some parking, so that spot isn't totally full. We didn't get into the buildings enough to tell you more than that, but.
No worries.
Yeah, and we didn't want to like pick buildings that,
I just,
yeah.
no worries.
They were just square footage is all we were looking for.
It was just, could it fit?
Yeah, that was it.
So how many individuals or families are, like, as of today, would need to be?
Well, how many are down there?
Yeah.
Approximately 30 families.
Well, there's 35 trailers right
That-
now.
Right now, or is that after we've kind of had
Let's
the
see,
last
there's
month?
36 after we got rid of the 2 burnt
Okay.
ones. And we don't know entirely sure, but from what we're being told is there's probably 45 families down there. Some of them are doubled up. But the tenants change a lot. They come and go. So we don't have a good idea of how many actual families.
30 to 35 we have leases with.
Okay.
So we might not be able to get all of the families in the first phase, but the goal is to get most of them. So.
Will they have some input as to the type of unit that they want if you do like this neighborhood meeting and you keep them in the loop? If they choose a duplex over the apartment building, for lack of a better term, will they have some choice?
At this point, it just kind of depends on what we actually.
I know,
Yeah.
it's kind of.
But we definitely want that feedback, and we want feedback to make sure that we are designing something that's gonna be usable to the families and culturally appropriate and comfortable for them. So we are gonna be taking that feedback. We're still kind of trying to figure out what this neighborhood meeting is gonna look like, because a lot of what we're doing is in flex right now. But that's definitely feedback that we want. Yeah.
It's okay, one easy question. When this contract is completed, is one of the outputs a set of drawings from which a contractor who actually builds things actually
Yes.
builds?
Yeah, so, and I think, I don't remember who had the question, but this contract is for sure, all the schematic design is gonna be for the entire project, but right now, we're just talking about developing phase one, with future phases kind of contingent on that.
But we would want them to work with us to develop the entire parcel. So phase 1, we can still see how that ties in footpaths and green space and how that will tie into the entirety of the project.
So is engagement, I know you guys are gonna try to make that effort, but this is a very disenfranchised community that's living down there now. What's your approaches to trying to get involvement?
We've been trying to do that already. We have really, over the last 3 months, made an effort to help. I don't know how to. We've provided some large receptacles and have been hauling off a lot of trash free of charge. We've been going down there and doing some tree trimming, and we've been going down there and trying to make it a higher standard of living that's been there in the past. And so that's helped a lot, I think. I think a lot of people have seen us. We've had a presence. We are involved in what's going on in the community down there, and we're not just collecting the rent. We've also hired, not through us, but through our property management company, a lot of people who live down there to help do some of the things we've been doing, some of the cleanup projects we've been doing, and some of the scrapping, and some of the automobiles and things that have just been abandoned down there. I mean, at one point, it was a pseudo wrecking yard there. I think there was more abandoned cars than trailers. And so it has been a major cleanup project just to get to this point, and that's helped a lot. But it is a disenfranchised community, and that is a step. We've reached out, initially we reached out to the Multicultural Center, and we will do that again as we proceed going forward. And we've tried to build those inroads, especially through our property management and the maintenance that's going on down there.
You guys need any census t-shirts or anything?
I mean, anything we can pass out will help. Right?
Caitlin, is this your last slide, or are you still
I mean, I just had
presenting?
One that more directly compares them, but that's all that I'm really presenting, yeah.
Okay. I had a couple of notes. One, I noticed that this new RFP, will you leave that slide up just while we're talking, because I think it's helpful. The old one gave 5% or 5 points for locality, meaning people that are licensed and do business in the state of Utah. But I saw that was removed. So it just, maybe we can work that back into one of the new categories. If not like explicit, maybe just that we just keep that. I liked what you said about opening it up to more people to respond that are local. But that was one note that I had. Another is that I really encourage us to reach out to Deb Dull and Rocky Mountain Power, because I want to remind us that getting to net zero for this project doesn't necessarily have to be solar panels. It can also be subscriber solar, which is the lowest hanging fruit for solar for an apartment complex, because there's not a lot of roof. And we've already talked about Deb and the city looking for, projects. So I just want to make sure that we set up an appointment with Deb and you all to further that conversation, and let me know where I can help in reaching out to Rocky Mountain Power and kind of, this, maybe even a call to the CEO to see what we can do, as we all had a chance to meet him a month ago in Park City. The only other thing I was going to say is that I like this idea of phasing one section of the full development, because that's like biting the elephant. I just want to make sure that as we're talking to potential developers for this project, that we do provide some assurance that if they're doing a full design of the project, but they're only being awarded the first phase, that there are assurances in place that they're not going to get cut out of the full project deal. Does that make sense? And I guess the only other thing that I would say too is that while it does follow the pad to open units up for market rate, that this property has historically been the last place for people in our community to live, our very low and our extremely low income families. And I understand that mixed income is a good thing. I also understand that we as a city can look at housing new recruited employees, like a new police officer and their family in this project. But it is my hope that we do our best to really reach out and help those that are extremely low. And that could manifest in studio apartments as well. So I don't know if that was really specified. I didn't really see that as specified, but something for consideration to just kind of, as we're going through, this development process. Those were my notes, but I'm so excited that we're moving forward and that we have this team that we didn't have before, and this council that's so behind this project. It's amazing.
Thanks.
Other comments?
So I made various comments on the draft, and for the sake of time, I'd rather not go through them here. Are you reading them and considering them? And yes. Okay, thank you.
And just so you guys are aware, we'll meet again tomorrow to talk about this. We'll finalize kind of what we took out of this meeting and what the comments are. We'll prepare a final, and then we'll send that back out again. So you'll see it again before we publish.
Awesome. This is a big project, and this council really wants to, be part of the process.
Yeah, and just so you know, the timelines that are in there are subject to change, kind of depending on when
We like to be optimistic in our timelines. It helps us go forward.
I do want to double check that November 2022 that was in there. Is that for all the phases or just this one?
This one.
Just this one.
And then if we had other questions on the shared document, should we just expect to get answers to those, or should we ask them here?
Either way, if it's something you feel.
Just quickly, the project management part of the scope of work references, let's see, community engagement meetings, specifically including meetings with current members of Walnut Lane and other stakeholders. I was just curious, because there are probably people, who live nearby who are neighbors. Do we have a definition yet for stakeholders, or?
No.
Yeah, okay.
And stakeholders can be wide open.
Yeah.
That'll be for you guys to determine. Stakeholders traditionally is property owners, investors, developers, council members. It's usually not surrounding property members, but it can be. That's entirely up to you guys to determine.
Okay, and the other question was just a small one, but I thought I'd ask now in case it's supposed to be asked now. The pre-development section of the scope of work mentions, specific things that I think designers can take into account, like open space, pet area, blah, blah, blah. So I just didn't know, does one need to put real specific hopes, a children's play area in there, or not necessary? Designers and architects anticipate these things, or?
Yeah.
I just didn't know if I had to specify.
No, they'll
Playground.
anticipate that.
Okay.
They'll put that in there.
And I think that we do want to leave that open to the imagination.
Yeah.
Of designers.
All right, 8:53, are we good? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Barry, it was really nice to have you give this report and be part of this. It's really amazing. Our planning department is rich. Yay. Okay, moving on to 7.3 on our agenda, discussion of draft sustainability action plan. Rosemary, we have this, and then we also have you here for the VCAP and the joint with Dominion. So let's get going here.
I know, I'm going to talk really fast. I have a bet with Chuck in the back.
A what? A bet with Chuck? I like that. I like the sound of that.
Well, I get that up. One thing you might not be aware of is we've started this weatherization program with Clear Results, and some of the residents in Walnut Creek have signed up. So Clear Results is going to come down and do 50 trailers, weatherize them, all the equipment, all the labor. Yeah, and they've had this program for a long time, but they never do it. Clear Results. They're a subsidiary of Rocky Mountain Power.
Oh.
And so I was saying, how's that going down here? And they said, we never get 50, so we haven't done it in decades. And so,
is it because they have to be a pre-76 trailer?
No, it's because nobody's on the ground going, hey, winter is coming. But we have Lisa helping me do ads.
And they'll do pre-76 trailers?
Yep. So.
Thanks for putting an ad about that in the paper. I told several people that, yeah.
Yeah, there's all different stuff. I've been at the food bank, and yeah, we're doing all kinds of things to promote it. We're halfway there.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Action plan.
Action plan.
Action.
I'm waiting for my clicker.
Oh,
but
come
I can
on,
start.
dongle. Get it going.
There we go. Chuck, my time didn't start yet. All right.
He said it does. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, so you've seen, there's another.
Hit the dongle again. It's not up.
There we go.
Here.
Before I start, I did want to thank Lisa for all her work on this too, because I know she's behind me and she has done a few versions of this with me, so thanks, Lisa. Basically, the new version's out, version 6 of the sustainability plan. The main revisions to it are you had asked about some more transportation strategies. We decided the last time it came before council was right before we were all going to the mountain conference. So I've taken some of the suggestions that are in drawdown and some of the things that Jane Goodall focused on. And then we're also participating in the Mountain 2030 cohort. So that 2030 cohort is helping cities do inventories. And I teach that class, but I thought it'd be good for us to be a part of it because I've reached out to the high school and USU, and so students can learn how to do it, and so it'll be succession planning for sustainability. So some of the things that happened since this last version of it was, there's been a lot of work with engineering about biker safety and doing connectivity. One of the things that I was really excited about is we participated in the National Bike Challenge, mostly through the hotels and the tour companies, and we were ranked 17. We beat Park City. And so for our first time being in it, that's really noteworthy. I know you guys were more interested in like shuttles and mass transportation, but I think that's a little outside of this plan. And so, what's in this plan right now is, pedestrian and bike friendly, and we'll be talking about the e-bikes and fleet transitions. And so I think it's just a little beyond the scope, and, it feels a little bit like, like a bowl of soup and people keep putting things in it. And at some point we got to go, okay, this is our first sustainability plan and we're going to look at it every year and we could add things then. One other thing is that happened since this last presentation was I'm working with Enterprise to electrify our rentals. And so the Travel Council has a whole campaign about carless vacations. So they did this in Orlando where they converted all their rental cars to electric cars, and we're in the perfect position now because we have these 17 charging stations and we have 17 registered electric vehicles in our community. So, we've built it, and so now it is, what can we work on to really get more people adopting electric vehicles? And I also want to work on a grant for the shuttle. And I know people keep saying shuttles are too expensive. This is how much Bryce and Zion spent. But I think we have to think about a pilot. So this shuttle, I sent this to Karen. It's this beautiful electric shuttle, and it's $30,000. So that's something that's doable. And that's something that we can pilot, and then we take it off from there. So maybe it's not going to go through Arches, but maybe it could go through town for the locals.
Yeah, it's just not about the shuttle. It's about the shuttle driver. It's the liability. As we know, the cost of a shuttle is not the cost of the bus.
Yeah, and so that would be a partnership. So, like that, remember Jerry and the Hopper? Mm-hmm. So I think that's the way we do it. We're a partner with a private entity to just promote that. And so what I've been doing is working with our own, Kelly Day, our own person here on our fleets, because we have really old vehicles. I mean, we have vehicles that are 20 years old. And so the two of us have been starting to work together to say, okay, when we look at vehicles, we need to look at life cycle, we need to look at operating costs, we just need to approach it differently. And then again, like I said, in the long term, I think this is much bigger, and I think we need to do a transportation master plan. I mean, we're doing little parts of it, and this is the whole idea of having a 10-year plan. So each year we'll say, okay, here's some projects, or here's some grants we can go after, rather than saying, okay, let's let's conquer regional transportation. Switching gears a little, so this was the Mountain 2030 information. So I read Paul's book, Drawdown. And so on the left is all the drawdown. Those are his top 10. On the right are the Sustainability Action Plan. So out of the top 10 things that he talks about in that book, we're doing 9 of them, some aspect of it. And so the hard part about, like, I know we wanted to wait and see what was in that book.
Where are we doing silver pasture? Or is that the one that we're not doing?
No, it's the idea of putting trees where there's cattle. And so we don't actually have a lot of ranches in town, but we are looking at different trees for Old City Park. So the whole idea of that pasture is having shade trees where animals graze, not just having a big field. So we're doing little parts of everything in that book. But looking at that book, you know, he projects everything out till 2050, and our plan was 2030. And then he also just has this, you know, the investment of some of these projects are just beyond the scope of anything that a municipality would do. So, but you know, the main ones, we have pieces and parts of it. We did get the compost in, so we're doing our first food waste pilot out at Old City Park. So we're working on that. And then in terms of Jane's presentation, I mean, basically Jane was saying it's not about science, although I didn't quite agree with that. She said it's about inspiring people and having a sense of community. And so what I took out of that, you know, was doing this video that we finished, the little community leading the way. And so we've spent a lot of time on this. We had 40 different, you know, agencies vet it, but that video already, it's close to 5,000 views. You know, and that pretty much says what's in our plan. And it highlights people that are really positive in this community that are doing great things. And 2 people are already doing their master's thesis on our sustainability plan. So I know it's not exactly what everyone wants, but it's a great document. So I think the next steps for it are, I think we should just approve it. It's holding up some funding. I think we should just think about projects that we've already identified. There's 2 more documents that are coming up. So the Solar Energy Innovation Network, the roadmap, that's probably going to be finished in December, and that has a lot of, like Ronnie was asking about costs, so that has a lot of costs in it. It also has a lot of modeling about vehicle electrification. And so some of the things that, you know, you wanted to have in this document, I think it'll be more detailed out in that one. And then the second document coming up is a quality control assurance and methodology. So someone forwarded me Evan's comments, and so all that's going to be taken care of in the methodology. But we followed ICLEI and we followed EPA WARM for the way we did it. And then the whole idea going forward is, you know, every year we'll have a progress update and say, okay, so, you know, these are, you know, this is where we're making progress. This is where we might need to spend more time. And so that's what I'm recommending, how we move forward.
Okay, comments? I can start. So I read the plan with Oscar, and it was really fun because he's like, "This is great, Mom. This is great," and he's right. This is a great step. A couple things. I know I'm gonna talk about this again when we talk VCAP, but there's no reason why we can't look at gray water for all, not just for 5,000 and over, 5,000 square feet and over. Especially now that the state of Utah's made it permittable.
So it's about $700 per resident.
Yeah.
If we do the gray water. And so one of the things.
Not even $700. You
Well,
mean the stub for Greywater?
when we were
To
at the,
require it?
yeah, Arroyo Crossing.
Arroyo?
Arroyo, yeah. It was like 300 for the permitting, and then Roz was there and Orion, and so they said another 400. So something we could do as a city is maybe look at that permit fee, if we're gonna do it. So,
Is that our permit fee, the city? No. I think it's just, you just get a permit and that includes, you don't have to pay extra for a gray water permit with the city.
maybe it would, how about the
It
health
might be with the
department?
health department, but
Yeah.
but I don't know that the permit fee would be 400. Good question, but.
Could look into it.
It's, when you're looking at new construction, it's not that, it's just, it's the lowest hanging fruit that we can do in terms of water conservation. But I do also feel like we can be more aggressive with building standards in general and energy efficiency. We don't have specific targets. So I'd like for us to just bite it and get specific targets. That I really feel strongly about that. And then also around the tourist transportation piece. I hear what you're saying, that you feel like it's out of scope for our sustainability plan. But I feel like we're talking so much right now as a council and with other municipalities and with UDOT about our transportation as locals to go to services as much as visitors coming to visit us and the carbon footprint for that. And so I still think that maybe it feels like it's out of scope, but that was my big note from the last time we reviewed the plan. And so it sounds to me like it's addressed by you saying it's out of scope and not that it's been incorporated in this new draft, correct?
Well, we incorporated a few more things into it.
But not visitor, not
visitor.
outside of our city. So I just, I know that, like, again, a lot of people are doing a lot of work to talk about that carbon footprint. And so I'm not sure, I still feel pretty strongly about that one too. So I guess those are my notes for the plan as it is. I love it, but I still wish that we would have put in targets for transportation outside of the city, as well as more specific building standards that we could implement right away in our building department. Those are my notes.
For the overnight accommodations, I have sent recommendations to planning about different
Yeah, but I'm
building
not talking
standards.
overnight accommodations. I'm talking all new construction
Yeah.
would be held to a certain building standard, and it would be higher than what is, baseline for the state of Utah. And we've been talking about that, so.
So I feel like these are good points, and how it works practically in my experience is that you get to a certain point and like you get certain things done, but then you also have to put some things off and to the next step, like Rosemarie's saying. And the important thing about that next step is how do you integrate, how do you work with partners?
Right.
Because so it seems like the Travel Council, or at least a subset, is excited about working on the sustainability piece. And so maybe we don't have that tourist transportation piece together now, but let's set the framework to work with them. And Evan has given us feedback about the solid waste district and his excitement about working on the solid waste piece, and I am too, number 3 on drawdown, reduce food waste, and there's people working on that. And so it's not just about what is the city and what is the city sustainability director going to do, but how do we as a community and who owns what piece and is the lead on it. And so more than just throwing more stuff in the bucket, it's also just how does the bucket sort of define who's doing what at a big picture, but then we also set some things aside and say, here's the goal, but we're not going to worry about so many of the pieces in 2020, and let's let that group or group of people work on it.
The reason why I'm bringing them up is because they're specifically data-driven, actionable items. And so I appreciate all the data that you have presented, and there is substantial data around transportation and about building efficiency. So that's why I'm pushing on those particular points. And when I think about the bowl of soup is what you said, we keep adding to the bowl of soup. I think I've been really clear this whole time. Those have been key components in that bowl that I'm not trying to, you know, I'm not adding an appetizer. I'm just like, for me, knowing the data and like the data that you're presenting too. I don't know, I feel like I thought in my head, like it's somewhere on page 15 of something, where it's talking specifically about energy efficiency of buildings as being one of the biggest targets, transportation being the other one. So that's why I'm just saying that it's from a data position.
Right. And one thing that I'm struck, I think Mike used the term potpourri to describe like all the things that are in it, and I feel like I still haven't had a cohesive process where we choose those short-term priorities like you're saying. And so I think, I feel like that's what I'm struggling with. Like there's this whole range of stuff that I'm not clear on totally what the priorities are or what our engagement with setting those is.
Well, and I look at the budget and I see solar bellies, and I think like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Like, what are we putting, where are we putting our money toward? Like, what's in the plan? And then we're gonna follow this plan with a budget. And like your budget in here is the real deal. Like you know, are we gonna be ready to put money toward the things that are, you know, listed in this table?
I think that's why transportation feels so overwhelming, because it's like one of the most expensive things, and it's like, wow, but it's it's a range. Like when we were just talking about Walnut Creek, I was thinking, so there's LEED, there's living buildings, the most inexpensive is Green Enterprise, and
You mean Walnut Lane?
Walnut Lane.
Yeah.
The idea of, I mean, I'm thinking that maybe we don't certify any of these buildings, but just build to that standard, because we have to balance out.
Well, that's great, but that's not in the plan. Building to those standards are not even in the plan. It just says energy efficiency.
No, it has it says, here's the spectrum of where you can go from cheapest Green Enterprise to Living Building Challenge is probably the most expensive. So it said, here's this.
Which page?
I would say it's in the implementation.
The implementation, yeah. But it's not like in the plan, it's like in the implementation. And maybe that's okay.
Yeah, so it's on page 41. So it says, work with property owners, start with at least 10% of new construction and major renovation, meeting either well building, living building, Energy Star, and/or LEED prerequisites by the year 2020.
So it's just not specified in the plan, in the goals and in the plan. I mean.
Right, so in the text is, what have we accomplished, what are sort of our more general short-term, long-term, and then in those appendices, so one is what's happening in 2019, what's happening in 2020. So it's a 10-year plan each year, and we are upping the ante. So it's like, okay, let's start with.
So it's not like we're gonna add to the soup next year. It's a 10-year plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I'm just pushing pause and kind of reiterating how I've been feeling just about the.
Yeah, and then in the plan itself, in page 33 to 37, it's like, here's a range, A to E options, and A is like, you know, really stepping it up. If we had all the money in the world, we would do A and we would be done with it. And it goes all the way to E of, okay, let's do 5% or let's do 10% of these things.
I don't know if this will help us along, but I am happy with the fact that this is a living document and it can change. I didn't know if the mayor, if you feel strongly about those two things and you feel they're not like in the goal list or the plans, if you have suggested language of what to add, but maybe that in combination with, if somebody has a suggested, mention of the solid waste district, I mean, at least to get us to the next step. But anyway, what's happening for me is that I feel like there's a lot of great information in here and a lot of things are covered well, but somewhat like Kaylin, I feel like I need to get to the next step where we have ample time to discuss how to prioritize what items we're investing in the coming year, because I kind of need to know that well in advance of when we budget. So I guess my question for staff is how and when does that time get built in to discuss that? There are a lot of ideas in this plan, but I kind of need help as a council member to try and understand which ones are going to give me more bang for the buck, so that when we get to the budget, I'm more prepared, I guess. So that was kind of and that in conjunction with the VCAP stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know about anyone else.
So Rosemary, in this presentation in page 4 of 6, I mean, you have a list of priorities, it looks like, that you would like for us to budget. So the list of, 15, 12 items, is this for the next year?
Yeah. So what happened last year is I presented a budget based on a few projects that we wanted to start. And a lot of the projects I've done so far were through grants, so you guys, it didn't come to you. And so it was just grant money and we got some projects started. But the idea is that, every year I'd come with, here's, 10 of the top priority projects I think we should do or equipment we should buy. It's hard because some of this stuff is within other people's departments. So me meeting with Kelly Day, it's we should look at different kinds of vehicles. And so that wouldn't come to you as here's a sustainability project. I go to Kelly and say, hey, what vehicles do you think could we use a hybrid for? So some of the projects are through, I didn't put anything in for the capital equipment meetings. And so it's kind of hard to, I think, for you guys to know all the projects that I thought are priority and that are underway.
So I have a question. The bulk of the money that you're looking to have allocated is composting and recycling. And, I mean, that goes to Kaylin's comment. I mean, is that something we could work with Evan with, and because through this new tax restructuring document that Carter sent out to us. Thank you, Carter. I didn't see it before, but there's a whole new what is it? The recycling market development zones tax credits, and that's going to be new. And I don't know if you have to be a waste hauler to apply for those, or is that something that we can work with Grant County Waste Management to have those guys apply for getting solar bellies and
absolutely. And the Moab Solutions is in this plan. It's in the appendix, and same with the special waste district. The reason that, because I saw the notes from Evan too, the reason Monument was listed so much is that whole section is on municipal contract. It wasn't trying to, there's 40 different nonprofits that I'm working with in town.
Well, I'm just pointing out there's funding that's coming up, and they just need a certification through GoEd to show that that's an enterprise for recycling and composting. And it seems like there's a big effort with the new tax restructuring. So that's something coming up soon, and I don't know how that.
Soon as there's a deadline we have to apply?
No, I don't.
I don't know yet.
Yeah.
It's still,
Okay.
we're
Yeah.
still trying to interpret what all that means over the next week.
But equipment is an integral part of Utah's plan to help with diversion and trash. So, I mean, I thought that was just interesting and that was brought into the tax restructuring.
Maybe we could get that industrial grinder that I've been dreaming of for concrete.
But I mean, I'm just curious, like, with those partnerships that we're trying to talk about, a shuttle system or recycling, I mean, is that something where we come together and sort of pass those responsibilities to somebody else? Or is, I mean, are we being the lead in that? I mean, is that something that you have the capability to be that person?
Well, Joe Kingsley, at our last meetings, said, oh, you should start coming to the transportation board meetings. And I said, no, I think Karen goes to those.
They've sort of faded away. Because Michael, this has been gone. But,
well, I could reach out to him because I think it would have to be a partnership.
I think also the group decided they wanted to be a little more formal, because it was sort of like ambiguous as to whether or not they were like an ad hoc of the county or just, there was a little.
yeah, and I think maybe, I don't know. Kaylin, well, no. Did you, like you met with Curtis, I don't know if that transportation piece sort of moved to the Arches congestion plan. It seemed like it was, I don't know how
No, we're
that-
sort of we're another project,
Oh, okay. So,
I think.
However, I mean, I hate to say it again, but I just, like, when I think of the bypass, that's a sustainability topic that is not, approached in this plan.
but I think Rosemary's point is that she would like, I mean, we need to pass something, so
For sure.
can we move forward and then we can add to, because, I mean, it's been
Is
a crux.
passing this, like, committing us to this budget
Well,
on
it's
page
not-
30?
It's not on your agenda for approval tonight
I know,
anyways,
I know.
so-
I'm just saying, is passing this committing us to this
Page
budget
30?
on page 30 of the plan, at the conclusion page?
No, it's
Before
a-
all the
it's
charts
like,
and
no,
stuff?
it's not committing you to it. It's like a general plan that you pass as a city. It's what your goals are, it's what your ambitions are. You're committing to what you are in a budget through your budgeting process. So this would outline in your sustainability what you're trying to budget for, but it would not commit you to, like, you have to find a way to budget these items.
Yeah, because some of them have already been paid for through grants. I think it was Ronnie had asked for just some dollar figures to go with the projects. So
Yeah,
that's
for
where that came.
budgeting, yeah. Okay, so any other discussion on this before we move on?
Joel, can you just clarify what comes next? Because I was confused reading the packet. I thought we were voting on this. I thought we had tentatively approved it and we were asked to, I don't know, somehow vote on it again.
We tentatively approved it.
Okay.
So we wanted to bring it back for one final discussion, basically, get your guys' input, see if there was final changes that needed made based off the kind of the Park City meetings and some of the things we've been attending, and see if there was some other final changes. So if everyone's pretty comfortable with it, I think we will put it on the next agenda for adoption. Is that
Yes,
the
sir.
vibe I'm getting from everyone? Okay.
Which represents a formal commitment to allocate funds then? No.
It creates a formal commitment to try and follow that plan. That's what it does.
It's like the general plan.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
but the general
what it
plan
is.
doesn't have like a specific chart with like
No.
funding implications like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, moving right along to section 8, new business, 8.1, proposed resolution 60-2019, a resolution adopting vulnerability consequences and adaptation planning VCAP recommendations. Hi.
Y'all still here?
Yeah, it's 9:25, and we might have a hard stop at 10.
I understand.
If Tawny has anything to do with it.
I wouldn't blame it one bit.
My day is now 19 hours long. What could 2 more hours do?
So there's two parts of this BCAP study. We're gonna go through it pretty quickly. I'm here talk more about the science stuff and what NOAA has brought forth in terms of what climate change is going to do to our water supply. Can you push these buttons for me? So, well, like I said, it was a two-part.
Did you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Arnie Holtquist. I'm a member of your Water Conservation Board and Watershed Coordinator for Grand and San Juan County. We put this together as a request when I first started as Watershed Coordinator in 2013, I believe it was. I got asked several times, what is climate change going to do to our water supply? And I've been upon a person with NOAA that could answer those questions for us and managed to get him down here and have a nice little workshop. So that's where the story comes in. Either way, it was a two-part workshop. One was the direct assessment of what the expected changes will be, and the other part would be what we could possibly do about it. We had a variety of people there, including the Forest Service, the BLM, Grand County, Moab City, San Juan County was there, and just about anybody that has depended on water, well, dependent on water was there. Anyways, according to this presentation will follow the same format. Let's talk about the science here. I'm not sure I need to read all of this. I'm hoping that we will tell you what changes in precipitation type we'll have, changes in runoff timing, changes in runoff stream flows, and changes in the magnitude of the precipitation events, or the big things we're going to see in climate change. Okay, we will also discuss what things we could possibly do to ameliorate those negative effects of climate change as a community. There's a few things I need to explain to you right now, and this graphic does a great job of that. It's a basic water budget. We get so much precipitation, so much of it is soaked up by our trees and riparian areas and our vegetation. A certain component goes to groundwater discharge and recharge in our creeks, and then we have runoff. Runoff is what is generally used in for the Moab Irrigation Company, and our water supply is based at this point in time solely on Moab City's water supply is based solely on groundwater. In our water budget in a normal year, it looks like 60% of all precipitation is used by our riparian areas. That leaves 40% going to either recharge and or runoff. And then, go ahead. In a drought year, the riparian area still gets its share, and it's going to take its share first. So in our 2018 water budget, although we only received 58% of normal water, we actually only had 23% of normal runoff. Okay, this is an important point here. Based upon because the riparian area will take your water first, we saw a lot less water in runoff than we did see a percentage of the actual precipitation. Okay, go ahead and the next one. The second thing we need to realize with Grand County is that we will see climate change in terms of temperatures. Already, we're seeing it already. Since 2000, it's about 2 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than it was the average for the entire 20th century. Okay, we're already there. We will see more of that, and we'll talk about where we're going in the future. What happens when we get warmer annual temperatures? Go ahead. Well, let's just talk about this for a second. So in the climate scenarios, it looks like an average we will see, based on low emissions, of 5 degrees Fahrenheit increases in our average temperature by 2050. This is NOAA talking with 40 different climate models, not me. So we're looking at a significant change in terms of our temperatures by 2050, probably 4 degrees by 2035. Go ahead, let's go to the next one.
Can I just add something? So one of the reasons we did this study too is because a lot of the climate models don't include like the Moab area. So for Utah, it's like the Wasatch Range and there's Colorado, but we were in this kind of an odd spot, and so he brought in models that were specific to Moab. And it was also one of the reasons we did it is when you sign the mayor's compact, you have to have an adaptation plan.
Okay, so what this actually means to our runoff at this point in time and how much water goes into recharge, it does have a drying effect. We will have a higher evaporative demand, so to speak. We will see a higher ET as a fraction of precipitation. We will see more rain, less snowpack. With the exact consequences of that is kind of interesting. May not be as significant. We will see reduced snowpack. We will see earlier runoffs. We will see reduced annual flows. Okay. Reduced groundwater recharge. How much we're going to get reduced depends upon basically on ET. Okay. Not necessarily whether it falls as snow or rain. And we will see an increased wildlife. So what it does... Wildfire, excuse me. Go ahead. Under 5 degrees warming, we're going to see, given the same amount of precipitation, given the same amount of normal precipitation, we will see 67% of our precipitation going to ET and 33% of that coming to us, as opposed to 40%, which gives us about 83% of the normal amount of water supplied that we're seeing at this point in time. Looking at 2050, we will see a 17% decrease, an average of 17% decrease in our water supply. That's the bottom line with warming. That's what warming will do for us, okay? And anyways, the interesting thing about this model, or this area, is that we're not expected to see a decrease or an increase in precipitation. The Grand County area will see about an average of normal, quote, average normal precipitation over the duration when you measure it over a long period of times. Individual years will vary more wildly, which we'll get to in just a minute. But we will see the same amount of precipitation as we have been getting. Just going into the fact that we will see wider swings in our climate due to global climate change. I'll just use as an example last year, where it was the hottest year on record here in Moab. Okay? Keep on going, we'll run through this. Extreme heat projections, we're going to see many more days with greater than 105 degrees. Historically, we've had a few. By 2050, we're going to have 5 to 10. I think it says 2085 next. We're going to have 10 to 40 days of greater than 105 degree heat. That's fairly warm. And then this is another aspect. So there were two or three major components that I saw in this in terms of the science. One is we're going to see less water supply due to evapotranspiration and warmer temperatures. The other thing is we're going to see is increased major precipitation events. So what's going to happen here, as you can see on the screen here, our historic 100-year 1-hour rainfall, it's about 1.36 inches. By 2050, that 100-year 1-hour rainfall will be 1.64. By 2085, 1.84. So we're going to see bigger storms come our way. We'll still see the same average precipitation, but we'll see bigger storms come our way. We will also see that historic 1-hour event that was coming every 1 inch every 27 years is now going to come every 11 years. In terms of stormwater planning and how we manage our water supply, the point is that although we're getting the same annual precipitation, it's all going to come at once occasionally. Does that make sense? Okay. So the summary of the future change is basically due to extreme events. Is yes, we're going to have heat waves. Yes, we're going to see more drought, years of drought, not overarching drought over 15, 20 years, but we'll see annual years where we will not see a large water supply come down. We will see heavier precipitation and flooding. Our winter snowstorms can and may indeed be bigger than they were in the past. And our cold waves are probably not going to be non-existent anymore. Go ahead. What are we looking at? So in terms of these I threw this slide in here because I wanted you to know, this isn't me talking, this is NOAA. Okay, these are the climate specialists, okay? They're out of Grand Junction, and then they're out of the University of Boulder and the University of Utah at this point in time. And this is where they're getting their data. It's not my data, and I just wanted to let you know, if you want to look it up, you have that slide to go to do the research, okay? And then I'm going to let.
Oh.
Okay, so what will this do to our aquifer recharge? Well, it's going to reduce soil moisture and it's going to increase evapotranspiration. So it's definitely at some point in time, we are going to see less aquifer recharge than we have been seeing, even though we're going to get an average normal precipitation over the long term. Okay, just let that go. These folks are tired.
I think, yeah, we might want to just skip, because we have all of these slides in our packet.
Right.
So we've probably gone through
Okay, so
the truth.
we've done through the truth part. So one of the nicest thing about this scenario was that we sat down with all the people, Grand Water and Sewer was there, and talked about what we could actually do, and came up with a table, which the Water Conservation Board will be looking closely at over the next little while. This just got finalized a couple weeks ago, so we can move forward with it. But we do have recommendations from this group that the Water Conservation Board would like to look at, and we're going to move forward with that. Okay.
As well as engineering and planning.
I'm planning.
So
yeah.
we're sharing these with them already. They've seen some of these.
Okay.
Okay.
Question for you, Rosemary. Where did the 45,000 and 5,000 come from? What are the units of that? Is that a total amount of money or what?
I'm not sure what.
Incentives.
Landscaping incentives.
Is that us creating a budget line item for residents to apply for grants? Okay.
And then I was just curious, is that $5,000 total for commercial to, oh, okay.
Per year, total, over, what are we talking about?
We're talking about a pilot to see if that incentivizes, commercial developers enough to be interested in,
Okay.
So let's add that to the chart.
Well, when
In
is
this-
in the chart?
In the sustainability plan?
Sustainability plan.
So the recommended motions are approve all or select recommendations in plan and reallocate available funds during budget opening in December and 20 city budget. So it sounds like the proposed motions are budget specific. Is that? And I thought we weren't doing that. as
Well, this
part-
is the VCAP, not the sustainability plan.
But we're making, it sounds like what's being suggested is that we make a budget decision now
Right.
about the budget opening or even the next city budget.
Which is in June, right?
Can I speak for a second?
No, I want to hear from Joel first.
So the way this is written, approve all recommendations in plan, reallocate available funds during budget. So that's if you have them and you want to reallocate them. It's not requiring you to. And then again, it's the same. Select recommendations in plan and reallocate available funds. Available funds are at your discretion as a body. That's your determination as to whether or not they're available funds.
Okay, but we would be kind of signaling that that's our intention.
Yeah, this would be basically a part of your plan. This would be a part of your plan on water and how to fund these projects.
Okay.
So Rosemary, my opinion is that we have a number of budget challenges in front of us. And this is all brand new to me and brand new to and not terribly well defined. And I, for one, would not want to commit money at this point.
But still, it's making
We got a whole budget process to go through. We'd integrate all this into it and divvy it out as best we can. But I'm going to be reluctant to hand out cash now. Okay. Just.
Well, and so in our resolution, there are 2 bullet points that are money specific that could potentially be amended without totals if we wanted to approve it without dedicating resources at this time. But I also wanted to encourage us to consider amending another bullet point and amend residential and commercial building codes to require all buildings to install gray water systems, but not systems, gray water valves, so that they're gray water ready. And it costs literally $50 for the fixtures. But they don't have to have systems.
So
The only other recommendation
the
change.
this set of recommendations in front of you on groundwater depletion is directly resulting from the final of this VCAP process. And the Water Conservation Board has gray water on its agenda for tomorrow's meeting. I personally would like to see some of these groundwater depletion management go through the Water Conservation Board and be vetted, so to speak, a little bit better than they are in terms of the recommendations you're seeing right now.
That the water board might have some revisions to this resolution?
Especially with the groundwater depletion portions of those recommendations.
Well, if that's the case,
Can we
if
move to
a
table?
council member wanted to,
Move to table this.
Second.
thank you, Tony and Kalen, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, I'll vote to table, but I did have some questions about
So that
this.
was motion passed 5-0.
Yeah, but
Well,
I do have
and we
some
can't-
questions. So are the questions
And-
appropriate to ask when we bring it back?
Yeah, it's just as long as it's not deliberation about whether or not we table it.
Yeah,
If
no,
you
it's
wanna-
not about tabling.
Okay, because it's tabled, but go ahead with your questions, and then we'll move on.
I mean, if we're going to bring this back, I guess one of my questions was, we have VCAP in the name of the resolution, and I'm no resolution writing expert, but I just didn't know, doesn't that mean somewhere in the body of the resolution we should explain what VCAP is?
The acronym's not explained.
Well, the acronyms explain, but I don't think to the layperson, but maybe that's not the purpose of resolutions. It really is clear, but anyway, but maybe that's not what it's for. And then I was just wondering, at least before we have to vote on it again, if I can just get a little bit of clarity on the connection. I mean, I did read everything in the packet, but the first point on the connection to Grand Water and Sewer, I just wasn't sure if we pass the resolution, are we committing to connect? I mean, I can see the
You know what?
advantages of.
I'm going to say this. This is a good question, and then that's why tabling, I think,
Yeah.
is happening. And let's make sure we have the conversations, and I think we should move on. But I want to honor and respect what you're saying.
Yeah, but just
I
out of
think,
curiosity, when do we have the conversations? When it comes back, or?
well, it sounds like they're having it at the
Uh-huh.
board, the water board, and then they're going to come back to us with recommendations and clarifications
We
of
as
certain
staff,
items.
before it gets on agenda, we'll address that.
Yeah, I can
It will
send
be
you an
addressed
email
in there.
tonight.
As you get it back, that issue will be addressed.
Okay, but in terms of like the other list of questions some of us might have, what do you want us to do with those?
Mail them to me.
Okay.
So that first scenario.
But I'm gonna
Okay.
stop us because it's
Okay.
9:43 and we're moving on. 282, the proposed resolution 57, 2019, a resolution adopting a joint cooperation statement between the city of Moab and Dominion Energy.
Okay, so this should be short and sweet.
Excuse me.
You've heard that, yeah.
I don't think you needed my approval for that, no.
So the city was approached by Dominion to just, because we've been doing so much work with Rocky Mountain Power, and we have a lot of mutual goals, and so they came to me and asked if we could start working on some energy efficiency pilots and promote the therm-wise more. When I was doing the weatherization with Rocky Mountain Power, you know, one of the things was people in trailers without gas are sort of left out, and so that's something that they could help us with. The other thing is benchmarking and energy. And so Dominion, the data that we get from Dominion and the data that the Green to Gold partners are getting are really hard to decipher, so I'm just working with them so it's more clear. And then some of the other pilots we've been talking about is looking at compressed natural gas for some of our trucks, city trucks, and then maybe even looking at the water reclamation or some of the commercial accounts in town to see if we can't capture some of the biogas.
Thanks, Rosemary. Discussion, questions?
I was just going to thank you for this. I either knew and forgot, or maybe I'm just learning about Dominion's own goals, so that was exciting to learn about. I was just curious, do you know if they've already gone into any of these agreements with other communities in
No.
Utah? Okay, so we're the first.
Caleb?
I was just going to make a motion.
Okay.
Move to adopt Resolution 57-2019, entering into a City of Moab and Dominion Energy Cooperation Agreement.
Thank you, Kalen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ronnie. I just wanted to be really clear that this will not jeopardize our goal of being 2030 net renewable by 2030.
Right.
Net renewable energy. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Karen is excused herself at this point. Moving right along. Thank you, Rosemary, for all of your work on all of the plans. Thank you very much. Just because there's comment and concern doesn't mean there's not love and appreciation, and I just want to say that because sometimes it can feel like, discussion can feel like criticism, and I just want to say thank you for all of your work on these plans. 8.3, proposed resolution 61, 2019, a resolution confirming the appointment of Rachel Senta as the city treasurer. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Approve Resolution 61, confirming the appointment of Rachel Stenda as city treasurer.
Thank you, Tani.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mike. Discussion?
One comment, Mayor.
Yes.
The treasurer position is required by state law, and since the position of treasurer is within the finance department, this appointment represents no significant change in duties for the finance director. The appointment will reflect minimal job duty additions and consequently no increase in compensation for the finance director. I want to thank Rachel for all she's done for the city over the last 6 months and how much digging she's done to get us on a financial path and that. So that's it.
Thanks for adding that info, Joel.
Yep.
She looks a little tired to me.
Discussion?
What do you think?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 8.4, proposed resolution 56, 2019, approving a hillside development permit for the expansion of a parking lot for the Hampton Inn located at 488 North Main Street, Moab, Utah, as referred to City Council by the Planning Commission. Nora, I don't think we need a presentation. I just want to ask the question that we always ask. The Planning Commission present if you want to just present what they're.
Sure. So the Planning Commission forwarded a positive recommendation. And actually, one of the attachments to your staff report lists the criteria that are required for a hillside permit, and it goes through an analysis of the code requirements. I'm really tired.
Was it unanimous? Was the Planning Commission unanimous?
No. There
Okay.
was one person who voted against it, and that was Jeanette. And she felt that she just voted no, she felt it was inappropriate. And there were 2 conditions placed. There are a couple of conditions that the Planning Commission placed on the approval, which I would ask you to also. There are a number of engineering concerns that the applicant is actually working with the city on, relating primarily to storm drainage. And since the Planning Commission approval, they have moved forward and have reached out to the city engineer and are working through some of those issues. And then 2, prior to, and that would all have to happen before we would review and approve the amended site plan application. The deal is there's still a fair amount of money in engineering that goes into this, including the stormwater. And they want to read on the hillside permit before they spend the money and resources to finalize that information for the city engineer. So the second condition would be prior to consideration of the amended site plan application by the Planning Commission, the applicant shall submit additional information on the retaining system for the cut slope that will result from the removal of the hill.
And I took some photographs, and I think most of you have gone up there and taken a look at it.
Oh, do you all want to see that, or is there a motion, or? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for the purpose of discussion. Of course, let me see if we can find it, sorry. Usually put it somewhere logical. I move to approve resolution number 54-2019 for the UDOT and, oh, hello. Wrong one. Yeah. Yeah, okay, well, I guess this is it. For the purposes of discussion, I move to approve resolution 56-2019 approving a hillside development permit for the expansion of parking at the Hampton Inn.
Thank you,
Subject to the
Ronnie.
conditions of approval?
That wasn't in the motion, but sure,
That-
subject
I
to
was-
the conditions
yeah.
of approval.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ronnie. Is there a second?
A second.
Thanks, Tawny. I was going to say that if you didn't bring it up, whether or not you wanted to amend your motion to include those, but you caught it. And discussion.
Yes, if I may, or does someone else want to start first?
Go ahead.
Okay, so Nora wrote your letter and so forth. I really have two categories of concern. One is that this is a big deal. It's a huge lump of material out there. You know, you suggest I'd already been out there. And so I'm nervous about conditionally saying, oh yeah, we'll give you the permit, if everything else works out all right. Because it kind of represents a commitment, I think, at least an informal commitment to, we'll make it work for you. Don't worry about a thing. If your first plan comes out, and it looks like it's not really very stable, we'll figure out something. So, us approving the permit at this time without having really all the geotechnical stuff in hand makes me uncomfortable. The bigger problem I have with it here is that I want to point out to you is a policy decision. If we grant this sort of waiver on a big excavation, then it opens the doors as a precedent to people who may want to build on hillsides south of town, north of town. It could be both commercial stuff. There's a world of residential stuff up against the southeast side of the valley. And there's one owner up there in particular who's been agitating for years. He will definitely perk up if you pass this resolution. And we are considering passing restrictions on setbacks and step backs, what do they call it, for commercial things as a condition for new overnight accommodation. So we're headed that way, I think, in terms of protecting the view shed of the valley. I really admire that. I remember when we first came to town and David's Johnson's up on top was a big deal. View shed was a huge issue. And so I'm not personally enamored about passing a waiver here that says, sure, you guys do what you want. So that's my thing. I'm more worried about the policy issues of it than I am about the geotechnical stuff, although I would prefer that they had all their ducks in a row geotechnically before we issued the permit. That's my opinion.
Thank you for sharing that.
Along the same lines, I have the same concern that even though on this side of Main Street, it's an eyesore, that dirt mound now, but if we are going to say yes to this, same thing. When it is on the other side of the street and it's affecting the cliffside, are we opening ourselves up to having to say yes to anybody who wants hillside development?
Are we? What are the policy implications for an approval?
Everyone is on a case-by-case basis, and so I don't think by doing this you'd necessarily have to approve anybody who ever came in for a hillside permit. I think the situation is a little bit different in that the mounds that we're talking about are not necessarily really parts of the cliff, if you will. The soil type is completely different. It's not visible. The retaining wall will not be visible from the road really, except maybe just like a flash when you're going by it. But those things are all important considerations. And I indicated to the applicant that they were the ones that needed to plead their case. And the council can certainly do what they wish. You can certainly vote to postpone until you have additional engineering information. Then they'll decide what they want to do, whether they want to go that way and pursue that. Or, you can deny it, and then they will probably just abandon the project. They do feel the need for additional oversized parking.
So I have a bunch of questions. I don't know if they'll be more relevant for you or Chuck. So I noticed when we get into, I don't know if I wrote the number down right, if it's 15, 55, 130, I think it notes that all the conditions or all the criteria need to be satisfied. And I noticed in, I think, Exhibit E that there seemed to be commentary on many of the points until we get to 7C, but then nothing on 7C to 7R. So do I assume that in this case 7C to 7R aren't relevant, or?
They're not necessarily applicable.
Okay.
Or they've been covered in the condition with the city engineer.
Okay.
Because they all have to do with, they all have to do with, engineering and piping, storm drainage, flood, and those things are all required to be
Okay.
satisfied to the satisfaction of the city engineer.
That was part of my question. And then being new to this hillside development, just because we haven't gone through it before, is this a case where there's a recommendation for a surety bond or improvements agreement, or is it premature for that?
I don't know that we would require an improvements agreement for this one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this stuff was in the code, but I don't know if it has more to do with buildings, so I was just trying to make sure I understood.
Yeah, I think the main situation this was intended to discuss was new buildings and new projects. But certainly it has applicability in this section as well.
So I did go and look at the site, and it was a little bit confusing to me, and it might just be that I'm having some visual trouble interpreting the drawing, because when I stood there and I looked at the way the parking lot is now, kind of, it kind of goes this way, and then you got the building, and you got the entrance, and you kind of got the two spillways, or I don't know what the word is for them, coming down from the hillside on the east side. So I can see how it kind of looks like a self-sustained mound, although it kind of has that weird little arm that connects to the hillside. So I was just having trouble standing in the parking lot. I'm like, oh, okay, I think I can envision what's being gone for here, but I was having trouble envisioning like where the, I don't know, the 21-foot where the retaining walls would end up being. So I just didn't know, is there any kind of cross-cut drawing that can help me better understand, like, are you trying to match the slope of the upper parking lot and then, or slope it downward towards the hotel?
Well,
I'm just trying to figure out if the big drop would still be on the neighboring property side.
It would still be,
Again, if the whole mound would move.
yeah, well, they are talking about they will have to have a retaining structure because there will be a 21-foot cut.
But on which
side?
So
Yeah.
it's on this side. If you look at the site plan where the topos get real close together,
Yeah.
that's steep. And they had proposed, this initial drawing just shows them sloping it back and regrading it, but we would require them to put in a retaining structure that's stepped and landscaped and all those kinds of things. So the way this works is you continue to go up, 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 up.
So if you tag out and let me tag in.
Okay.
So right there is about what we're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
The retaining wall, just so you could clarify where it was, which direction it was.
Yeah, no, I think it was just confusing me because when I stood on top of the mound here, I was like, oh, okay, it already drops off right here.
Yeah,
And
it's-
the land kind of connects here, so I was like, oh, well, maybe there's going to be a new retaining wall for here.
Yeah, it's in all likelihood going to be in this vicinity right there.
Yeah, okay, that helps me visualize. And then I had sorry, I get up to the mic. I had a historical question for you guys, because in the document we were given to read, there was a statement about, well, maybe when the hotel was initially developed, there was a reason that the mound was left and they worked around it. Do we know why that is, or is that something
Because
we can
they didn't want to deal with the hillside development permit.
Gotcha. Okay. That was one of my questions. And then, so anything that, like when we got our geologic hazard maps, yada, yada, that were presented to us. All of these additional engineering questions you presented and the additional information would then look at that, right? And assess that,
Exactly.
look at soil type and look at,
That's standard for us in any project now.
okay.
And under state law, if it's a permitted build and they go and get the geotech permits and they get the, what's the technical term for the structural? Oh, no, if they get the geoteching done and they bring that back to us under the building code, we're not allowed to decline it at that point based off
Yeah,
of that.
okay,
So
gotcha.
the only thing preventing them from being able to do this right now is the hillside ordinance. If the hillside ordinance wasn't there, if they go out and do the geoteching, that we no longer have grounds to deny a permit based off the soils or any of that by state law.
Yeah, and then just a question, Chuck, so would this kind of be sloped for this to kind of meet what this is? Just because when you walk around it now, this is lower and this is higher, so is the idea to, I don't know, if you'd shore this up to have these parking spaces be the same height as this, or?
Yeah, it slopes down that way.
I mean, I know the detention pond goes here.
Yeah, they'd be, the preliminary plan has them filling in part of this. So the 21-foot hill comes down, this gets leveled off, if you will, and their drainage plan essentially shows that they have resubmitted the drainage plan, and in my mind, it complies with our ordinance now.
Okay. Let me just see if there's anything else. Oh, then I just got confused. I think it's really minor, but I think in one place I saw 15 stalls, one place 16. I don't know if it matters, but I just didn't know what the number was for oversized.
We've pointed that out to them as well.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay. And then just a liability question, because we haven't dealt with this before either. So we're looking at the VCAP and stuff, but when I stand up here and I walked around it, I was like, oh, okay, well, there are already kind of these spillways and water is probably naturally going to move its way to the lowest point or to the detention pond. So if we get larger isolated storms, I was just trying to figure out, like, it didn't look too bad to me in the sense that it seems like a separate isolated mound in some ways, although it is connected and you haven't added. But I couldn't really tell that most of the drainage is going to come off the east where it's higher. So it's going to be moving down towards the highway anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a drainage system on there, on the property currently. And so there's storm drains.
Okay,
And those storm drains come down to the highway
okay,
as it is right now. And they're just gonna, if approved, the hill goes away, this gets filled in, the new parking spaces go in here. They put in a new a subsurface detention system, and then it connects in. And
okay.
And we've reviewed it, and we think it makes sense at this point. We did not have that before the planning commission, but since then, they've submitted it.
Okay, I think that answers all my questions. Thanks. That was, I was
Any
just
other
trying
questions?
to visualize better.
Yeah, good questions. Any others? At this point,
So let me ask Nora one specific question. If we did move to postpone it pending more information, exactly what sort of information and when and where, from whom would that appear?
Chuck would have to say that they're good to go.
well, we've got a motion on the table, so why don't I call for the vote? And all those in favor? Three ayes, opposed? Well, zero? Are you
I'm sorry.
abstaining?
Yes, I do oppose. The motion is to approve as.
Yes. Approve with the conditions. So you oppose. Kalen, I'm not sure where you fell. Opposed.
I
Motion
oppose.
passes 3-2. Thank you.
Okay.
Moving along. 8.5, proposed resolution number 54, 2019, approving an agreement between City of Moab and Utah Department of Transportation for stormwater facility maintenance. Is there a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 54, 2019 for the UDOT and the City of Moab Stormwater Maintenance Agreement and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Thank you, Tanya. Is there a second?
A second?
Thank you, Karen. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Chuck, thanks for just sticking around while we go through these. Proposed Resolution 49, 2019, approving an agreement between the City of Moab and Wang Organization for Wang Utility Construction. Is there a motion?
I have one question before we make a motion. Is there no reason that we couldn't combine those two?
Well, it was two different resolutions because there's two different agreements. We put them consecutively on there. If you didn't approve the agreement with the Wong organization, we wouldn't ask you to do the agreement with the UDOT. So.
But if you'd like to make a motion to
I can
combine the
make-
two, go for
yeah.
it.
I move to approve proposed resolutions 49-2019 and 50-2019, approving an agreement between the City of Moab and the Department of Transportation for Wang Utility Construction. Did I read that right? Okay.
Thank you, Tony. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kalen. Discussion?
Chuck, thanks for answering the questions that I initially had, and can you just touch briefly, because I just want to make sure I understood it, but I think it's fine. Under the agreement, it's page 263 of the packet, but I'll try and tell you what it actually is. Under the utility construction funding agreement, let's see, and I think that is marked as page 2 of that. Item 4 on dedication of improvements, future cost recovery. Can you just kind of summarize what that is? I think I get it, but I want to make sure I understand it.
If it's the portion that I remember, so if you look on screen there quickly, this is where our north trunk line will end here at this location. What this agreement does is it lets the Wong organization put a sewer line underneath the highway through there, and what they want to do, and they're going to pay for all of that now, and what their cost recovery is that if someone else joins in, whether it's across the river, whether it's Lions Park, whether it's another developer, they want to be reimbursed a proportionate share.
Yeah.
It's like
Is there a time cap on that?
I think it's 10 years.
Oh, good question.
Just from memory. Yeah, it's often called a pioneering agreement.
Or recovery, right?
Recovery agreement, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was the question on that one. And then I think you said it's essentially, on the other one, it's essentially pass-through, right?
It totally is a pass-through. And if at any point the math didn't work, like if the bids are going to come in from the UDOT, let's say they come in high, UDOT won't award unless Wong gives the extra money to us to hand to UDOT, and if it comes in less, UDOT won't bill us, and we'll reimburse Wong.
Okay, those are my only questions.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thanks for combining the two. 8.8, proposed resolution 62-2019, a resolution of the governing body of the City of Moab declaring certain property owned by the City of Moab as surplus. Is there a motion?
Wait, I need added onto the motion that the sale be allowed to directly to MSD Environmental Services Incorporated, not requiring us to go through the bid process.
Okay. Somebody
think I can
writing that
get
down.
that.
And sorry, Chuck, thank you.
Yeah.
I
Sorry, did
forgot to
someone
say
already
thank
start?
you
Otherwise, I can
for
try
your work
that.
on all those items.
Let's see, I move to approve surplusing and selling of a belt press to MSD Environmental Services Incorporated for the current offer of $50,000 and to allow the sale to go directly to MSD without going out to bid. Did I get that right?
Yes,
Something like that?
perfect.
Okay.
Auction, yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Ronnie. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Tani. Final discussion?
It was such a nice belt press. I'm going to miss it. I hope there's a photo of it because I know how much these guys took care of it, and it's one of my fond memories from my tour.
Oh my gosh.
I'm serious. If you're a mechanical geek, it was actually a cool piece of machinery, but I don't have room in my yard, and I use for it. So may it have a happy future in whatever happens to it.
Yes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 8.9, proposed resolution 59-2019, a resolution endorsing the efforts of the City of Moab Economic Development to renew the Utah Enterprise Zone in Moab. And as I understand it, this is just something so that people can get their tax This was actually brought to my attention by Gordon Bay, the CPA in town, saying we need to have you guys approve this so we can keep giving this tax credit to people.
And we've completed the application. A part of the application requires you guys to pass a resolution in support, submit that resolution as a part of the application along with the minutes from this meeting.
Yeah, is there a motion?
I move to approve Resolution 58-2019, endorsing the efforts of the City of Moab Economic Development to renew the Utah Enterprise Zone Program in Moab.
Thanks, Karen.
Second.
Thanks, Kalen. Discussion?
Yes. These tax credits are state income taxes?
They're created by the government's Office of Economic Development, and depending on job creation, putting capital back into your business and expanding, you get tax incentives.
Okay, I just want to ascertain that was the case. It wasn't local property taxes.
No, this is not local whatsoever. This will.
And I just have
It's also separate from the opportunity zone, which is what has been causing the confusion.
No.
Of why we thought.
What's the
we
difference
had
between an
applied.
opportunity zone and an enterprise zone?
Exactly.
What is the difference?
Okay, well, the opportunity zone is on, it's a mapped designated area by the governor saying, if you develop in this particular area, you can actually, you know, when you buy or sell property and you have to pay property taxes, or you have to pay tax on the sale of the property, like if you receive income, you have to pay income tax if you sell property. Well, if you do that, but in an opportunity zone, you can reinvest that money without paying taxes, I think is the way that I understand it.
Capital gains.
Capital
Capital
gains,
gains
yes,
tax,
can be reinvested without paying taxes on them in the opportunity zone. So investors are super excited about that. Whereas the enterprise zone, is a distinction that if we meet the certain criteria, which we do as a city, businesses that are in this enterprise zone can, it's also a tax, not deferment, but a tax credit.
Yes, it's for rural.
Expanding business.
It's for rural communities. Usually, it's incentives for job creation. Is usually what they're for.
But it's
Was there a
pretty
history of
specific. It only can be
The
used.
reason I ask, I saw press about how these things weren't all that great, all right? But it could be, it's a weak argument, I don't know. I'm just curious, is there any evidence that here in Utah, that they've
We
actually?
we had a local business, the Spoke, who's going to be doing, so it's used for manufacturing and processing. So you can't use it for a retail store or a t-shirt shop or anything like that to hire somebody for those positions. But the Spoke just received funds because they are going to have a processing, they're adding a brewery, a distillery. So they have 2 employees, I think, that they received monies for.
And I got a call from another gentleman who said this is thousands of dollars to them, and they laid it out for me what they were using it for. I don't want to share.
I'm sure they're making that. I'm just wondering if the county or the state comes out ahead in the long run. I guess what you're telling me is yes.
Job creation's the goal.
Two quick questions. I just want to clarify from what you said, Karen, because I read this as saying you get an additional $750 tax credit if you're in manufacturing, processing, agricultural commodities, but that you could get $750 for each new full-time employee created in the zone. So it doesn't have to be, I think, specific to that sector.
Because I was always under the impression it couldn't be for retail.
Not the way I read it, anyway.
So there's no fiscal impact to the city?
No, none whatsoever.
There's not.
It only benefits residents.
My last question is, just because it's called a zone, I wasn't clear reading it. Does this apply to all of city limits, or does it have a little amoeba on the map that I should be aware of?
You draw a zone, but it's essentially city.
Okay.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We are not going to canvass, as we stated at the beginning of this meeting, because the clerk's office would like more time to process the provisional ballots. 8:11, discussion regarding e-bikes on paved pathways. Here's why this is on our agenda. We've had a request by e-bike people to consider allowing them on bike paths. And what staff needs to know from us tonight is not a decision of whether or not we want to allow them, but whether or not we support moving forward with gathering the information that then would lead us to deciding to.
Would you like us to spend time on getting the information, determining whether or not there's a benefit to changing it and following the BLM standard to see how they change it and bring it to you to see if we want to match?
Yes.
I'm okay with that, but can you make sure that when you collect that information, you check in with trail mix and the history in the city on the funding of the paved path, just because I've been, really confused. My understanding has been that all of this was created with funds for non-motorized vehicles, and so I'm just trying
Can
to
you
make sure
answer
I
that, Joel?
understand that.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
when the federal money was granted for these trails, it was stated that motorized vehicles could not be used on them that were built with federal funds. Historically, the e-bikes were classified or defined under federal law as a motorized vehicle. The question now is, are they changing that definition to no longer include that? So if they're changing that definition to no longer include that, they would be permitted on those trails. The city then passed an ordinance, though, that said they weren't going to allow e-bikes on our trails. So we have,
Paths. On the paths, not.
yes, sorry, on our paths, so excuse me.
Don't-
So the question is, if they change their definition, then they by default would be allowed on federally funded paths that we have. Technically, motorized vehicles still would not be allowed on the paths, but that would no longer be defined under their definition as a motorized vehicle, so they would be. We would still have our ordinance in place that would say they're not allowed, so we would have to go back and change our ordinance if we were going to get in line with what they're doing. That's what we'll bring back to
The
you.
ordinance is to be,
We'll wait to see what the BLM does, and then we'll bring back to you what changes we need to
Regardless,
make to be
I would like to
compliant.
say that if we do move forward with the designation, if the way that e-bikes are categorized are no longer motorized, and we do move forward with allowing them on the path, I just encourage us to consider a speed limit
Oh, absolutely, and I think that,
and post it and
the-
enforce it.
The things that were brought up tonight in the public comment were that this is going to be an issue in the future. This is already an issue, like we're dealing with it, it's not going to be. 20 miles an hour, most people ride their bikes easily faster than 20 miles an hour, so we may need to consider speed limits anyways. It may be where we're at already, so.
Two more quick things. When you do your research, can you look at a breakdown between pedal assist and not?
It's a
And
class one by definition, they're pedal assist.
and then also, I was just reviewing, because I wanted to be respectful as the former Trail Mix rep, or maybe I still am because we don't have one, but, okay, so we're not making a recommendation yet. Okay, and just then that moving forward, we would, then coordinate with the city, county, BLM, and Trail Mix.
I'm just curious, I want to ask the icky question that nobody really wants to answer, and I'm willing to answer it myself. I feel that with a speed limit implemented, if the change occurs, I'm okay with e-bikes on the bike path.
Yeah, and I'd like to go on record as being for it as well. I ride that thing on my regular bike all the time. And yes, there is a speed disparity, and e-bike users will have to exercise caution and courtesy. And, but it's no different really than, I'm telling you, coming down that hill, for example, where a red letter rider goes up.
We've kind of talked about it as staff, the pros and cons, and then some drastic.
I'm just curious about this council, just
No,
to
for
get
sure.
the temperature from this council.
We have some awesome ideas that we've come up with on how, if these do get more and more popular in the speeds, how we can make them work, and some road things we can do that would be awesome.
I want the council to answer, if you guys are comfortable with kind of saying what your feelings are right now.
For class one,
Yeah.
pedal assist
Yeah.
bicycles, I
Yes.
am a proponent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about.
I don't have a dog in the fight. I really don't. I think we'll get pushback from OHV users is where I think a lot of it will come from.
I'm sorry, Tony, I didn't. Could
I
you say?
think we'll get some pushback from OHV users because they will consider them motorized vehicles.
That's another story. Maybe
It is another story, but that's where I think it will come from.
I'm concerned about that too. It seems like a slippery slope because this is just the beginning of an evolution in technology. And batteries are going to become more efficient, motors are going to become stronger, and what's the boundary between an e-bike and a motorcycle in 10 years?
Classifications.
Yeah. Well, Kaylin, I can
That's,
take,
yeah, that's.
Right,
what
and,
classifications are.
and I see, even with the speeds that I see on the bike path and the visibility sight lines, I'm concerned about safety anyway, and so just upping the weight of the metal involved in incidents concerns me. So, but I'm open to it. I also want to promote mobility, and it seems like there's great potential there.
You
So
have a
I
valid
feel
point.
like how do we accommodate them in our transportation network safely, I think is what it comes down to.
Well, and I think signage is gonna be key too, like, and like buffer zones, like what was commented, at the beginning of our meeting, that like, we are deliberate in buffer zones, depending on.
We
the
got some cool
distinction.
ideas to make some really big buffer zones.
Yeah.
So,
Ronnie, you didn't talk yet, you didn't give your.
I'm awaiting more information because I did spend a lot of time at Trail Mix meetings, and those guys have thought more about this than anyone I know. So I just want to make sure they're part of the conversation. And thank you for giving this some more time. But I also understand the perspective of people, especially who are seniors, and this is helping them get out, or like the ranger who wrote us from Arches, who's, would like to commute that way.
Well, and he is not a senior.
Okay, well, no. But I was talking about, I know some other seniors who are still out on bikes because of e-bikes, but at the same point, I'd like to understand the legal liability collision issue raised tonight, and so all of those things that you guys are probably gonna look at. So thanks for collecting information.
I may add one more thing,
Yeah,
if I may.
yes.
So you have a point, Kaylin. For example, I think it was Paul, it might have been you, who was telling me one night that people over in Boulder, Colorado, for example, are making high-powered e-bikes to do mountain bike kinds of rides. And these are souped-up electric motorcycles, and we're not talking about that here. I don't
We
want
don't
them.
have
And it could be
enforcement.
But there's a bright line right now between a motorized vehicle and a human-powered bicycle, and that line is dissolving.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And we struggle with enforcement of our consistently and broadly across our traffic regulations as it is. If you make it all fuzzy and you don't hardly have any law enforcement
As long
on
as they
bike paths.
Class 1 is, I think, is 250 watts. I had a 750 watt bike, okay?
Yeah.
And I can tell you that it's not pedal assist. I mean, it can hump me up, that puppy could hump me up pretty good hills without my having to pump it all. And we don't want those either, okay? Because, I mean, I'm talking pedal assist here kinds of things, because there is a conflict, so.
And there's a difference between Moab City Bike Path and like Barham Trails, and that's real. That is a real difference, so. Okay, moving on. 9, approval of the bills against the city of Moab.
I move to approve the bills in the amount of $1,236,936.73.
Thank you. Tony?
Second.
Thank you, Kaylin. Discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Tony.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All those in favor? We are adjourned at 10:23.
I have an answer. Yes, ma'am.
Or you can make it up. It's okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
The part that I read was interesting, and
Did you read the forward?
you know what struck me is, I did read the forward. You did read the forward, but you know what struck me?
And you make
Yeah, yeah.
Then it's like, half the time it goes, I wonder if they like even read the book. Like,
They're best
Absolutely,
friends.
and as soon as
Bruce
I